is willing to talk with anyone in the U.S. to avoid a military confrontation. Yesterday, President Trump said he has not ruled out putting U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela. NPR's Carrie Kahn has more.
When asked if a ground invasion of the South American country was an option, Trump said, quote, "I don't rule out anything." He also said there was a possibility he would talk to Venezuela's leader, Nicolás Maduro, directly, and added, quote, "We just have to take care of Venezuela." In his weekly state television program, Maduro responded he, too, doesn't have a problem with talking.
El que quiera hablar con Venezuela.
Whoever wants to talk with Venezuela will talk face-to-face, Maduro says, without any problem. The U.S. military has amassed a large presence in the Caribbean with nearly a dozen naval warships and approximately 15,000 sailors and Marines. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Cucuta, Colombia.
On Wall Street, stocks are sharply lower this morning. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down about 670 points. That's about 1.5%. The Nasdaq is down 450 points. That's more than 2%. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Brian Walsh of Cohasset has pled guilty to 2 charges in the case where he's accused of killing his wife, Anna. The charges include misleading a police officer and improper conveyance of a human body. Here's how it went down in Norfolk Superior Court earlier this morning.
Mr. Walsh, did you in fact willfully mislead various law enforcement, to include members of the Cohasset Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police, with the intent to impede or interfere with a criminal investigation of Anna Walsh's disappearance?
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Diane Frenier speaking there. Jury selection in Walsh's trial and the remaining murder count continues today. The trial is set to begin December 1st. Another seat has opened up on the Cannabis Control Commission, this after Ava Calendar Concepcion, who had been on leave for months, resigned from the commission. The State House News Service reports Attorney General Andrea Campbell's office made the announcement last night. Meanwhile, the Cannabis Control Commission meets today with several items on their agenda. In sports, the Celtics are in Brooklyn tonight for a game against the Nets. In the forecast, we're looking at a sunny day today. Temperatures in the upper 40s, partly cloudy overnight tonight, low around freezing. And then partly cloudy, mid-40s tomorrow, cloudy and mid-40s on Thursday. Maybe some rain, Dave Epstein says, on Friday. 43 degrees in Boston right now. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include MS Now, home to The Rachel Maddow Show, Morning Joe, The Briefing with Jen Psaki, and more. MS Now is a source for news, opinion, and the world. Learn more at ms.now. This is NPR.
Welcome to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com. Thank you /GBH News. The Mayor of Boston will be with us for another edition of Ask the Mayor, taking our questions and yours at noon today. And tomorrow at 11:30 right here at the Boston Public Library, legendary cellist Yo-Yo Ma is going to speak with us and perform for all of us. And on Thursday, Jonathan Van Ness joins us too. That'll be really fun. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So yesterday, Senator Elizabeth Warren called for Harvard to cut all ties with Larry Summers, former president of Harvard, teaches there now, over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Hours later, Summers announced he would step away from his, quote, public commitments, whatever they are, saying he was, quote, deeply ashamed of continuing to communicate with Epstein after everyone knew he was a convicted child sex predator. So today, we're opening lines to get your thoughts on the fallout, not just for one man in Cambridge. So-called Epstein files have exposed massive rifts in the Republican Party, even caused Donald Trump to do a total 180. As the House is set to vote sometime today on releasing the documents, the president now says he will approve a bill to do so if it makes it to his desk. Do you believe him? Here's sound of Jeffrey Epstein survivor Haley Robson speaking this morning at a press conference on the steps of the Capitol alongside decent members of Congress as well as other survivors.
To the President of the United States of America, who is not here today, I want to send a clear message to you. While I do understand that your position has changed on the Epstein files, and I'm grateful that you have pledged to sign this bill, I can't help to be skeptical of what the agenda is. So, with that being said, I want to relay this message to you. I am traumatized. I am not stupid.
That was pretty great, I should say. The number is 877-301-8970 to call or text. Is this the beginning of the return of shame in our politics? Will the ongoing Epstein files fallout usher in a new Me Too movement of sorts in our national politics? And what do you make of Trump's supposed reversal, saying he'll release the documents if Congress wants him to? And I know you all know this by now. He has the power. What time is it? It is 11:08. He has the power at 11:09 to order the Justice Department to release all these documents with no vote from the House, no vote from the Senate. And speaking of all this, does anyone listening out there actually believe that when the files are finally released, if they ever are, that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are not busy scrubbing every single reference to Trump, his family, and anybody else? The number is 877-301-8970.
We have a text in that regard already, Jim. Don't think we'll see all the Epstein files. I think Pam Bondi will say she needs some of them for the current investigation. And this texter is very suspicious. And here's somebody else who said, I just want this to be over. My husband watched the 2020 Netflix Epstein documentary this past weekend. Even though I tried to ignore the show and read my book last night, I had nightmares. I can't even fathom how triggering and tormenting this must be for sexual abuse survivors all over the world. You know, what these young women are doing, and they're not all so young anymore, some of them are in their 40s, but what they're doing, and I think it's so effective, because I remember when the Catholic Church abuse victims would march outside the Holy Cross Cathedral, they'd be 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. They would hold up pictures of themselves when they were 6 years old and 8 years old and 10-year-olds. Some of them even had like baby teeth. They're showing pictures of themselves at 14, 15, and 16. This is how young they were and how young they looked when this happened to them. And I think that's effective, very effective.
So, again, our number is 877-301-8970. Any reaction to what is going to be an historic vote today in the House of Representatives? That's one. Number two, we can have a little bit of a contest. The contest, you can call in about this. Who is the single most pathetic creature in Washington?
Mike Johnson.
I would say Mike. I was going. You beat me to it, Mike Johnson.
Oh,
so here is Johnson this morning.
So humiliating.
At a press conference. He was not at the press conference with the survivors, by the way. And we have it on good authority, at least Marjorie does. I haven't confirmed it. That when he made the statement, he was actually sitting on Donald Trump's lap with Trump's hand up his back. No confirmation, but we believe it to be true. Here is the pathetic Speaker of the House, Johnson, this morning.
With so many pressing issues on our plate, just very frustratingly to us, the Democrats are delaying that work even further with a political show vote. They're forcing a political show vote on the Epstein files. So we're just going to address that right at the top here this morning, because they've spent so much time, the Democrats have, spinning the facts and trying to confuse the people.
No, he's right. I have to give him
We're
this.
all confused.
The fact that 1,000 young women were raped in a ring led by Epstein, that's not pressing business teenagers. For this country. I mean, it is really unbelievable. How does he go home at night and face his son, who's on Porn Tracker with him, by the way?
Virginia Giuffre's book was the #1 bestseller in the New York Times last Sunday, and we read excerpts of it from last week, and I listened to some of it on audiobooks. This young woman who took her own life, it reminds me again so much of the Catholic sex abuse thing. These people pick on weak individuals coming from troubled circumstances, and this young woman, when her whole life, from the time she was a little girl, was abused by people. She had really horrible history going into even meeting Jeffrey Epstein. I think that's true in many of these cases. There's certain people that get preyed upon. And a lot of these women, some of them were homeless. Some of them needed money to pay their parents.
That's what grooming is all about.
Yeah, had sick relatives. They were desperate for money, and they thought that this guy was going to help them bail out their sick relatives.
Can I ask one last thing I'd like to throw into this? We're going to talk to John King about this at the bottom of the hour. The same day that 4 Republicans and all the Democrats in the House forced a vote on a moral issue in the House of Representatives, Donald Trump is welcoming with great fanfare the Saudi crown prince, who our own intelligence people said was guilty of ordering the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi.
Well, you know,
I mean, it's just. And by the way, Joe Biden did not distinguish himself either with that fist bump a couple of years ago of this guy.
I don't think we have to worry about moral imperatives with Donald Trump.
This is all by 11 o'clock. 877-301-8970. Rich in Belchertown, you're first. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for calling. What's up?
Yes, well, I just wanted to say that I think it's pretty obvious why the president did a 360 on releasing these files. Because if you take a look, he has lost some of the support that he had from the Republican members, and that once the vote was going to come up, it's going to be that he is requested to release these files anyway. So it's a PR stunt to say, hey, I was on board that I'm going to release these files, when he has objected, and they've run obstruction through his speaker for quite a while now.
By the way, you inadvertently said he did a 360. I know you meant a 180, but in truth, he is doing a 360 because he doesn't. That's fine. He doesn't actually believe in this. He did it for exactly. He doesn't want to be on the wrong side of an issue where, according to Thomas Massey, who is the Republican from Kentucky, who along with Ro Khanna from California are the two leaders, the Democrat, of this effort, along with three Republicans, Mace, Boebert, and Taylor Greene. There could be, even before Trump and Johnson flipped, there could have been as many as 100 Republicans who joined those four Republicans in doing the right thing and voting for the release of these documents. Rich, thanks for your call. We really appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Let us go to Ellen in the car. Thank you for calling, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, good morning, guys.
Hi.
I had just listened to a news report about Maine losing all their funding through Medicaid for Planned Parenthood, which included birth control, just random checkups, infertility. And it really ties into this administration's lack of respect and caring for women in general. And when they start to say things like barely legal of a 15, 16-year-old girl, she is not legal. It is rape.
Well,
and
you should probably talk to Megyn Kelly, too. Go ahead, Ellen. I'm sorry.
Megyn Kelly's the one who said that.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, you know, Ellen, I share your view. I think your ire, if that's the proper word, should also be directed at the American people who decided that a felon, a guy who was found to be guilty of sexual abuse, a guy who said on camera that he can grab him by the you-know-what, is the appropriate person to be the leader of the United States. So it's not just Trump, it's the people who decided he's just A-OK for our country. Ellen, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
You know, almost everybody who's texting now thinks that we're not going to get these files, that they're going to be scrubbed, they're going to be deleted of all references to Trump or any other Republicans that are in there.
Did you see what Lauren from Milford texted on that note? She says, remember Trump musing aloud on why Nixon didn't destroy the tapes?
Yeah.
I sure do. I mean, it's, but can I tell you something? I'm usually not optimistic about almost anything that involves this mess. But I think the fact that the Republicans in great numbers, assuming this happens in the next hour or two, are standing up on this issue, for whatever reason they're doing it, actually matters. I think it's a sea change in terms of the total and complete backing anything that comes out of this guy's mouth. I think it really matters.
I like to think that like other women who stood up against Trump, like Liz Cheney, who stood up against Trump, one of the few who stood against Trump, Nancy Pelosi, who stood against Trump. I feel like prefacing what I always said about Liz Cheney. I don't agree with Lauren Boebert's politics or Marjorie Taylor Greene's politics or Nancy Mace. I think she's maybe off kilter a little bit there.
She may be, yeah.
But they stood up. They were the Republicans that stood up. Three women, again, along with Massey, who started this whole thing.
Well, also Boebert. I don't know if all of them.
Yeah.
Bowen was called to the White House in the Situation Room. She's got the Attorney General of the United States haranguing her, Bondi. She's got Kash Patel from the FBI haranguing, and she doesn't move. And by the way, I know you know this, but it bears mentioning. If you watch any cable news, you've seen video of Kash Patel and Bondi talking about, of course we have to release these documents until Donald Trump told them we didn't. And it's humiliating, but finally the House appears to be ready to do the right thing.
And, you know, unlike a lot of women, because white women particularly voted for Donald Trump over and over again, and white women voted for him even after they knew that all these women had accused him of sexual assault. And since his first term, we know that he was found liable by a civil jury of sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. So many women have experienced this in their life, some kind of sexual violence or sexual assault, and understand how difficult it is to get someone to believe you, and understand how impossible it is to go through the court system, or nearly impossible, and get any justice. That maybe that's part of this too. You know, certainly in Nancy Mace's case, is part of it.
I'm not laughing at you. Here's another good text, anonymous texter. Remember the story a couple of years ago that Trump flushed so many documents down the toilet that it clogged?
That's right.
Yeah, sure. I trust we'll get all the files. How about never? Well, that's probably the greatest cartoon ever, as we know in The New Yorker, is a guy on his phone behind his desk in his office responding to someone calling, and he says in return, how about never? Is never good for you? I think the answer is never is going to be good for us.
Terry in the car. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Terry.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I appreciate that both of you are showing the respect to these victims. And the one thing that, though, I wanted to point out was Trump has raped actual women, and to the respect that you're showing these young women by calling these young women, I appreciate, except that I would really appreciate if you call them children, because this is pedophilia. And so I would appreciate if, you know, in this instance, they're identified as children, and that's what the horror of this whole situation is, aside from the rape itself, is that these are legally children.
That is totally reasonable criticism, Terry.
I call them young women a lot. I would call them teenage girls. Children connote something much younger than 14 to me. But
minors, they are girls.
Teenage girls.
They are girls, yeah. Terry, again, I think that's a very fair criticism. We'll try to do it. Terry, thank you for the call. 877-301-8970. You know what you and I haven't talked about, at least in the air? If the vote is overwhelming today, let's assume it's more than 2/3, so it's veto-proof. Should a bill ever get to Trump's desk and he vetoes it for whatever reasons, I'm protecting the survivors or some BS like that, is the pressure going to be on the Republican-controlled Senate to actually bring this thing up? Because obviously the goal is that it never brought up in the Senate.
So, I think there's going to be enormous pressure after this vote.
Enough for them to do something?
I think so. I mean, again, it's difficult to go back to when you're running for re-election, or you're in a situation where you're going to be called on this, to give a reason why you didn't want these files to come out. What's your reason? It's a tough one.
Well, especially now that your boss, the president, has said he wants them to come out, which of course he doesn't, but he said it at least. So I hope you're right.
Okay, here's a texter wondering about Geraldo Rivera's Al Capone vault. And people may remember that there was a big TV show when Rivera was
Geraldo Rivera.
Yeah, Geraldo Rivera was going to open Al Capone's vault. And then they opened it up, and there was like nothing of any interest inside the vault. Was there anything at all inside the vault?
I don't think there was anything.
I mean, there is a fear here that that we're not going to find what people that don't like Donald Trump hope we're going to find. But
who took Geraldo Rivera's job in New York City Legal Services, by the way?
Jim Browdy.
That is correct. Jerry Rivers was his name at the time. An anonymous texter, I wasn't going to say this, but since the anonymous texter, I am totally with him. Jim, timing is everything. We'll be invading somewhere soon, and then it'll be the holidays. I don't think soon. I originally thought that we were going to bomb Venezuela today, right at the exact moment, or another couple of ships. Right at the moment that the House was voting, but maybe not, hopefully not, in light of the fact that Trump is now allegedly on board. Mike in a car. Hi.
Mike.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on a comment that I heard, about how the whole administration, does not respect women. And sorry, there's a little bit of an echo.
It's our fault. We really apologize.
Anyway.
But we hear you perfectly, so give it a try.
Yeah. So I was also going to point out that they recently demolished the East Wing, which was historically, the women's the First Lady's quarter.
That's a good point. So,
and lastly, I was reading an article the other day about how the United States ranks 55th out of developed countries for maternal mortality, and that was really depressing. And so I think we got to protect our women better.
Yeah, Michael,
Mike,
thank
sorry
you
for
for
the
that.
connection.
There's a great racial gap too. Black women endure incredible difficulties with childbirth and delivery, and the mortality rate is very, very high, and has to do with poor health care.
Also, I was going to
poverty.
save this for John King, but he ignited this comment on Air Force One, where Trump turns to I believe it's a Bloomberg reporter, and she asks a follow-up question about Epstein. The first question she asks is about, you're mentioned in the Epstein emails saying Trump knew about the girls, said Epstein. She attempts to ask a follow-up, and he says to her, quiet, piggy,
I know.
Quiet. And not one of those damn White House reporters comes to her defense. They keep asking questions like, that's the way leaders treat human beings. I mean, it's just despicable. But we'll talk to John King about that.
Well, he has a vision of what women should look like. They're former beauty queens, that always helps get in the way. Preferably very long hair, preferably very long blonde hair, preferably really high spike heels, and lots of makeup. I mean, that's...
well, you left out and beautiful lips like Carolyn Levitt, as you said about 3,000
beautiful lips like Carolyn Levitt.
Harriet.
That's right. That's what they're all supposed to look like.
Harriet Newburyport,
Hi, Harriet.
You're on BPR. Welcome. Hi.
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 So, as horrible as this is, and as awful as girls, young women have been treated, I'm really afraid that it's not going to amount to anything.
Why?
That it's going to go away, and Trump supporters will believe him that it's a witch hunt, and I am terribly depressed and cynical that it's not going to amount to anything.
Well, I hope you're wrong, because I'm usually the pessimistic one here. I have to say, the thing that lends some credence to this, we asked Margaret Sullivan this the other day, and she's a media analyst critic who Margie and I deeply respect, former public editor at the time. She worked at the Washington Post. Why aren't reporters, when these survivors are on, asking them about the men? And by the way, they are free, and I respect it if they choose not to identify who they know was involved in this. But if the conventional wisdom is there were 1,000 girls or more, there have to be a hell of a lot of men, and they got to be more than Prince Andrew. So I hope you're wrong, but I hope you're wrong, Harriet. That's all I can say. Thank you for the call. I hope there's accountability across the board. But look, there's no accountability now. The Crown Prince is standing there with Donald Trump after he put his hand on his shoulder and gave him a warm greeting at the White House. 877-3, this is really too much. 877-301-8970.
Is somebody else along the lines of the last call says this is going to be like the Mueller report, that it did find very bad things, 10 counts of obstruction of justice, but because Bill Barr, then the Attorney General, lied about it, and because Mueller, I think, was too cautious and not willing to pursue those charges of obstruction of justice, it ends up being a big nothing.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
But the vote matters. It's one step, and again, I'm really optimistic. I think today really matters, especially if it's this hugely bipartisan.
Well, also, it's on the heels of the Democrats doing well. I mean, I think that's the other thing, too.
That's a very good point.
Donald Trump, he said tariffs are going to be good for Americans, but then he decided, because everybody's complaining about the price of coffee, he decided that actually the tariffs need to be lower because people were sick of the high cost of coffee and stuff like that. So I think he got the message from that election, and maybe he's a little bit nervous about this. Anyway, we're going to keep talking about this for a while longer. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, is going to be with us from noon to 1, taking our questions and yours. You can call her or text her or come on down to the Back Bay and see her yourself at the Boston Public Library. We'll be right back.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, playwright and actor Ins Choi. His hit play Kim's Convenience debuted at the Toronto Fringe Festival and grew into an international phenomenon, including a beloved TV series. Now on stage at the Huntington, Choi joins us to explore the immigrant family at the heart of the story and what it's like for him to step into the role of the father after once playing the son. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, featuring Traces, a new exhibit by Maine artist Kitty Wales, plus works by the Boston printmakers and a special exhibit of miniatures from the museum's collection. More at artcomplex.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor Wu will join us in about 30 plus minutes for an hour of Ask the Mayor. Tomorrow at 11:30, Yo-Yo Ma will join us to come for conversation and to play, and we're thrilled about that. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the Epstein situation with the House vote scheduled for today to order the release of the documents. And I'll repeat what I said in the first segment, which I know you all know. Donald Trump allegedly now supports the release. Donald Trump has the power single-handedly with no legislative vote to order the Department of Justice to release everything they have. He has chosen not to. That should tell you where his heart is. Mendez, you're in Boston. You're on BPR. Hi.
Hey, Jim. How you doing? Hi, Marjorie.
Good. Good to hear from you. What's up?
So, Jim, one of your callers said that he did a 360. Donald Trump did a 360. And he actually is right about that. Because the politics, they'll tell you everything to get into office. And once they get into office, they just go back on their promise. Donald Trump did say he will release the FC files, and he didn't. And now he's going through all this stuff. But the point I wanted to make was, I'm scared it might be a massive dump of files, and there will be some stuff missed on it, because it's like the Friday news thing. They'll dump a whole bunch of news at you, and you'll obviously miss a few things.
Well, can I tell you, Mendez, first of all, the first point you made, I wish we had made a very good point. We're talking about Kash Patel and Pam Bondi saying that they supported the release before they didn't. Donald Trump, candidate Trump, said repeatedly, as you said, that he wanted the documents released. I'm not worried about the dump. The reality is there's enough interest in this, Mendez. There are enough really high-quality journalists that they're going to pursue this. The issue is, what are they pursuing? What are they given if a release is ever ordered? And will a lot of the stuff just not be there? And that's what I worry about. And hopefully there's some really smart, moral people in Washington. They're going to try to make that not happen. Mendez, as always, it's good to hear from you. Thanks for your call.
You know, we have a texter here who says, looks like the Democrats are going to be backtracking as fast as I can. The Epstein stuff is going to soil their people far more than what they were hoping would hurt President Trump. When it all comes out, it's going to be Democrats, egg on their face everywhere. And to that, I'd say, well, fine. If there are a bunch of Democrats that were involved in 13 and 14 and 15-year-old girls, you know, let the chips fall where they may. I think the issue for Trump, obviously, is what it's going to reveal about him. And we already know a lot of what it revealed about him in terms of their closeness and their friendship and all the pictures we saw of them. You know what I really love?
And Epstein saying, which
he
is
knew
not
about the girls.
that he knew about the girls. Yeah.
That the picture, you know, they had this great big picture on the Washington Mall of, it was a riot of Trump and Epstein. They're holding hands.
I thought
they're
they're statues,
skipping.
aren't they? Statues.
Yeah. And they're kind of dancing together. They're very high, you know, best of friends and stuff like that. And they keep taking them down from the mall because I'm sure the president doesn't like that. But they wound up in front of some restaurant in Washington, D.C., which I really love. So people going by and taking a picture. Somebody should put those on T-shirts. I mean, sell them. They could make a lot of money doing that.
I mean, there's so many. We've talked about this before. That guy Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney in Florida, who cut the sweetheart deal for Epstein, and then lo and behold ends up being Secretary of Labor for Trump in the first Trump presidency. I mean, what was the deal there? And also this Ghislaine Maxwell thing. And, you know, there was a survivor on, it was an Anderson Cooper or somebody last night on CNN, who's, it was the brother of Gouffre, saying, this is beautiful what he said, is that if the King of England can tell his brother to get off the premises, then the President of the United States can say, I will not consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell after what she was convicted of. And he is so Right, and I don't know if you've heard Trump's line is, I don't know about it. I haven't been asked about it. I this and that. I'll look at it if it comes to me. Why can't he just say, no, she was convicted, sentenced, what, to 20 years in prison?
Because I think he thinks she can hurt him.
Exactly. I know that. But I mean, the fact that he can't give a straight answer, and, well, in any case. Matt in New Bedford, hi. Calm down, Jim.
Larry Summers wondered if the Russians had stuff on Trump.
Yeah.
Did you see that? That was one of the things we learned
in his Epstein emails.
In the Epstein emails, yeah. Matt in New Bedford, thank you for calling.
Hi, Matt.
Hey guys, long time.
Thank you.
Got the smartphone at home. I won't let my wife put it in the dishwasher. We have to hand clean it.
I think it's a reference to a past discussion, but thank you. You're breaking up a little bit, Matt. Let's do our best here.
I think this is all a smokescreen because a couple months ago, if you remember, Trump basically was tweeting that Pam Bondi should investigate everyone that's involved with the Epstein files.
Right.
Now he vote for the Epstein files to be released, but then he can say they're under investigation and he doesn't have to release actually all of it. And then he can just let this investigation go forever.
By the way, that post on True Social was not about the Epstein files, I don't think. It was about the alleged illegal behavior of Letitia James, James Comey, and Adam Schiff, was it not? And that was the document that most people thought was supposed to be a direct DM, and he ended up posting it. It wasn't about Epstein.
No, I think he just said in the last couple of days.
Oh, that was a few days ago.
Yeah, that he should
just
go after
investigate
Bill
the
Clinton
Democrats.
and the Democrats
yeah,
were
that's
there.
True. That's true.
That was a real brazen one. Just investigate the Democrats. Don't investigate me. I thought that was wild.
And that doesn't, by the way, that doesn't cause a ripple.
No,
not a ripple.
It doesn't cause a. I think you don't think that this is a guy with, is a moral leader. Needless to say, John from Western.
But that's not the point. It's like I said to the caller. The issue is not Trump. He is who he is. Why is there not a ripple from us?
I think because
I don't mean you and me. I mean.
Why isn't there a ripple about anything? I mean, the biggest ripple we've had was a demonstration a few weeks ago, No Kings. But you are seeing people demonstrate around the country about immigration. It's pretty impressive.
I know you told me that. Hey, John in Westford, we have 30 seconds. Thanks so much for your call. Good to hear from you. What's
up?
Hi, nice to talk with you. I think people view that it's not a true list. I think it's been butchered. He was definitely a part of the intel community. And there's no way the intel community is going to implicate itself in sex trafficking. And I think this list has been butchered, and it's not what we think it is. And there's also, besides the blackmail, there's a lot of offshore money laundering that Epstein was involved with in Wall Street.
Hey, John, you're generally fairly supportive of Donald Trump. Why are you another person who is sort of leaving him on this issue? 15 seconds. I'm sorry to give you so little time.
Oh, I do believe that he did kick him out of Mar-a-Lago, and as the Speaker of the House said, he did help the FBI in investigating Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay. All right, John.
That doesn't get any play.
John, thank you for the call. We're out of time. We really appreciate your call and everybody's thoughts.
Okay, we are coming up to a break right now. Right after this quick break, we're going to be joined by CNN's Chief National Correspondent John Kayyem. We're going to talk to him about the Epstein files, of course, the vote out of D.C., and of the thorough trashing of a Trump prosecutor who attempted to prosecute the James Comey case, who did, but got reprimanded by the judge. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. Listening to BPR.
The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia visits the White House to talk with President Trump. Both sides want to get something tangible out of the meeting. It could come down to this.
Who has greater skills, frankly, at negotiations, and who's going to come out of this, frankly, a clear victor?
That story next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition in Holbrook now through December 13th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250, masshumanities.org. And Dover Rug and Home, rugs and carpeting for today's lifestyle with in-home rug trial and design consultation. Rug in Natick, Boston, Burlington, and online at doverrug.com. Dover Rug, rugs and the people who know them.
Welcome back to BPR and NEPM and GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor Wu joins us for Ask the Mayor at noon today. You can ask her a question by text or by call, or right over here at the mic at the library. Tomorrow at 11:30, Yo-Yo Ma will join us and play and talk. And on Thursday, the great Jonathan Van Ness will join us at noon as well. Joined now on Zoom by CNN's chief national correspondent and, of course, Dorchester native John King, who was honored with this year's Stephen Hamblet First Amendment Award from the New England First Amendment Coalition. Congratulations, John, and thank you for what we're told was a wonderful shout-out to us during your acceptance speech. Thanks so much, John.
I did. Okay. Wow. Okay. I don't need the applause, but I'm grateful. Thank you. I did give you a shout out because I thought that one of the ways we need to deal with the skepticism about us out there is to have the kind of conversations we have every week and that you have with your guests and that you just had with some of your listeners as well. And so the combination of those conversations to just be fully transparent and just air it out, because we are one of the institutions that people trust less. And it's so when you're under attack and you're asking the citizens to come to your defense, defend the First Amendment, defend the right to a free speech, defend the right to have access and transparency from journalists and from banks and from every other institution, we have to have a conversation. We can't preach at people anymore, and I think you two are the best at it.
Wow, that's very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John. So tell us, I noticed you're down in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and we talk endlessly about the ridiculous prices of housing here in Boston. What are you finding out? Is it really ridiculous in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, too?
It's interesting. There are different factors in different places. In Pennsylvania, part of it's the transportation system. Part of it is the companies that own the grocery stores. But of the 50 states, Pennsylvania has the highest food inflation. Prices went up 8% in the past year. That's well above the national average is more around 5%. So you have food inflation. Rents here in Bethlehem, about $1,800 for a one-bedroom apartment. People, believe it or not, commute 2 hours to New York from here, two and a half hours to New York from here because the costs in New York are so expensive. So it's driving up costs here. And so you have a community that's just under stress. The unemployment rate's up a little bit here. And this is a county. Bethlehem is part of Northampton County, which is one of my favorite bellwether counties I keep coming back to because it always gets it right when it comes to picking a president. And Trump won this county. And the Republicans flipped this congressional district, but only by 4,000 votes, just shy of 4,000 votes. So it's one of the battleground districts. And trust me, here for 2 days now, affordability is issue 1, issue 2, issue 3.
John, what is that thing, like a nuclear power plant over your right shoulder? What is that thing that's in the background there?
So I'm down along the river, and you see a bunch of factories right here. There's a couple bridges behind me. I'm in the car to keep it quiet because it's very windy outside. I wanted to actually go down by the river so you could see it. So you talk about, one of the things I love about my job is I get to visit communities that I've been to over the past 20, 30, 40 years of doing this. And Jim, it was 30 years ago today. This is the very day they last fired the blast furnace at Bethlehem Steel.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, 30 years ago today. So think about that. Thousands of union jobs in a place that essentially the anchor of the community, and it goes away. So 30 years is a long time. Healthcare, not manufacturing, is the big employer in Lehigh Valley right now, including in Bethlehem. But one of the things I love about my job is that you come back to these communities and all along the rivers. I mean, think about the Baker Chocolate Factory. My dad worked there, Lower Mills in Dorchester. The American Industrial Revolution played rivers, right? And so you come into these river communities where most of those big manufacturing plants, the steel factories and the like, are gone. And so some communities have figured it out and found a way back. Others have been decimated, and some, like here, are gritty, and like every day seems to be like another day on the climate.
Half hour of the show talking to our listeners about the historic vote today on the Epstein files. I know you don't like.
All right.
What's that?
It's historic, all right. The president of the United States, what was the old John Kerry line? He was against it before he was for it, or before he was against it.
Those were those ads, yeah. But I know you don't like playing Nostradamus, but if you were a betting man, will we ever see the files?
It's a great question. And I heard the skepticism in your callers. People get it. This is why I like traveling the country and talking to average, normal Americans. They get it because, he did say, let's investigate Clinton again and let's investigate other people again. So will they find a reason not to do it? I will say this, that he had to flip. And if you think about this, let's see if we get the files. But this is a critical moment in Trump politics. The House of Representatives is the most MAGA piece of Trump's Washington. Right? The Senate has always been a little bit more distant. I'm not, they usually cave to him. They usually do what he wants. But the MAGA base is in the House. And the fact that he got rolled by the House, will it just be the Epstein files? Is this going to come back on affordability? Is this going to come back on health care? I don't know the answer to those questions, but mark this down as we head into the midterm cycle. Whether we see the Epstein files or not, some of his most loyal supporters here were willing to break with the president and start a fight about this, to the point where Trump had to completely cave and change his position. And Speaker Johnson this morning, who fought this tooth and nail and tried to pressure people to not let this happen, says now he's going to vote for it. So this is a big day.
So if you, one more Nostradamus question. Marjorie and I were talking about whether or not a massive vote in the House, which there seems to be coming, would pressure John Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate, majority leader, to actually call a vote. Do you subscribe to that line of thinking?
Yes,
you do.
Yes, the President of the United States says do it now. So why, if you're John Thune, and you got Susan Collins has to run for re-election next year in Maine in a very tough race. You got the Republicans have a better map than Democrats next year, but they got some tough race. They got a few tough races out there. Why in the world would you ask your people to vote against this now that Donald Trump has opened the floodgates?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you'll see the files, but Trump says he's going to sign it. So if Trump says he's going to sign it, John Thune's job is to send it.
We're talking to John King. So, John, we were just talking to you in terms of Epstein about the trickle-out effect of this huge swing by Republicans. Is there a trickle-out effect to a judge, a federal judge, a magistrate actually, eviscerating the Justice Department for, quote, a disturbing pattern of profound investigative missteps and fundamental misstatements of law in the Comey case? That's the kind of language you don't generally hear from a federal court, a magistrate. How big a deal is that, John?
That's a fantastic question. For the integrity of the legal system, Jim, it's a huge question, and it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. We have a number of CNN contributors, our legal guys who used to work at the Justice Department, Elliot Williams and Ellie Honig and these guys, Kerry Cordero, and they still have a lot of friends, some who still work there. A lot of people have left. The brain drain, the institutional brain drain. These are Democrats, these are Republicans, these are good public servants who could make a lot more money in private practice, who stay in the government to keep us safe and to put the bad guys behind bars for 20, 30-year careers, and they're running out the door because of the unprofessionalism and the vindictiveness and the retribution tour that is now the Trump Justice Department. So it's not just about Comey, and it's not just about some of the president going after his perceived enemies, but it's the brain drain and what it does when there is a big organized crime investigation. What if there is a terrorism event in the United States, or some kind of a big event like that? These drug cartels, a legitimate target of some of the president's actions. Do you have the people to build the right cases, or do you lose in court like this because you have amateurs, abusing the grand jury process, or not filling out the right forms, or not notifying the other lawyer like you're supposed to under due process and other rights? You know better than I do. Do you start losing important cases, not just the political retribution cases, because you don't have top quality people? I think you're starting in this case, because it's getting so much attention, you're seeing the effect of that. You cannot have ad hoc prosecutors appointed by the president because they will do his bidding. When the president says, get me a cup of coffee, the Justice Department is getting him a cup of coffee. When he says prosecute somebody, they're prosecuting somebody. That has we use this term too often. That's not normal. I mean, that's unprecedented in our lifetime, unless you go back. I guess Nixon tried it.
By the way, the object of his ire was not just the Justice Department, but this Lindsay Halligan, who was appointed as a U.S. attorney in Virginia to bring these prosecutions. She apparently presented the case before the grand jury, even though she'd never done a criminal case before. And if the reports are accurate, and it appears she totally misstated one of the most fundamental principles of criminal law, is that a jury can take away no inference if a defendant decides not to testify in his or her own behalf. It's like the first day of law school kind of thing. It is staggering.
And she also said, we're going to give you a little bit more evidence, not going to give it to you
a little bit later,
a little bit later. You know what amazes me? I mean, the normal person, you think, if you got plucked for a job that you were totally unqualified for, and we're going to go in front of the entire nation, you're going to go before a grand jury, I don't know how these people can do it. I mean, I'd be hiding under my desk for the next
maybe
year and a half.
Maybe none of the professionals would do it.
I know, but she did it. I want someone to do the profile on her. What made her even agree to go in and look, ridiculous?
There are a lot of people who I would argue in this administration are in over their head, who are really they're chest thumpers. They think they're just great, and they don't have the experience. That doesn't mean they're bad people. They don't have. You're talking about a U.S. attorney or a federal prosecutor. You're talking about people who work in senior White House positions. You look at how this Department of Homeland Security is, whether you agree or disagree with the enforcement of the immigration stuff. Doing it in ways that are also getting thrown out by judges because people aren't getting due process or it's not being done right. There's a lot of Keystone cops. And again, however you voted last November, whatever you think of the current administration, this contributes to the point we started with, the lack of faith in institutions, lack of faith in our government has become, it's horrible when I travel, People of all political persuasions thinking it almost doesn't matter anymore because they're just going to screw it up.
Really? Well, it's a meritocracy, John. Isn't that what we were doing? We're getting rid of DEI and all this preferential hiring so we can hire a bunch of unqualified white people? Is that what we're doing?
Well, he has, in this second Trump administration, what he has hired is people who are loyal to him.
Yeah.
And who will do what he says. And, there's actually, when you win an election on your White House team, you don't want people who are always 1,000% yes men or yes women. But you get it in certain political positions. But, the Justice Department has always been a special place, right? It's not the Attorney General is not supposed to be the president's lawyer.
Right.
Pam Bondi is the president's puppet. It's just, she does whatever he says.
We're talking to John King. So, John, the thing that most put me over the edge in the last few days, and there's a long list, I mentioned in the top of the show, the president was doing a press availability on Air Force One, and a woman, I believe from Bloomberg News, asked the question about one of the Epstein emails saying that Trump knew about the girls. Here is Trump's response to that, and then that reporter trying to ask a follow-up question, again on Air Force One on Friday. Here it is.
You're going to find out what did he know with respect to Bill Clinton, with respect to the head of Harvard, with respect to all of those people that he knew, including J.P. Morgan chips.
Sir,
Yeah,
if
Jennifer,
there's nothing incriminating in the file, sir, why are you acting as a...
So the reporter says, sir, if there's nothing incriminating in the file, why not? And she's about to say, release them. And he looks at her, points at her, and says, quiet, quiet, piggy. And John, the thing that has really put me over the edge is not that Trump is being Trump, because this is who he is. Why is it that woman's fellow reporters don't stand in solidarity with her? Why ask a follow-up question after a colleague as is insulted and demeaned by the president of the United States as he is? Well, why is it business as usual for these people?
Well, there's a big divide in the White House press corps. There are more traditionalists. I covered the White House for 10 years.
I know that.
George W. Bush administration, the Bill Clinton, the second term of Clinton, and then the first 6 years of George W. Bush. And it's a very different place now. And so I can't speak. I'm not at the Trump White House every day. But there's a huge divide because, as you know, he's he's kicked people out of the White House pool. And sometimes they get back in. But there's, whenever he's there, there's always one or two of the MAGA media people there whose only job is to tell him how awesome he is, and ask him a question about, sir, are you excellent or awesome today? And so there's a divide. And so I agree with you that there should be more solidarity in the sense that if he treats people with disrespect, and he came back to take questions, right? He came back to talk.
He did.
So he opened the door to asking questions. And so at some point, the reporters just have to say, we're done. We got nothing for you, sir. You don't want to treat us with respect. We have nothing to say to you. And just because that's his oxygen. It's he thrives on the media. Right. I got a train coming through here too. One of the reasons I love being in this part of the country is we got trains. It's good.
We just saw it go by in the background there. We love trains, Marjorie.
So
I
wanted to ask you about the significance of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia coming to the White House. People may remember that Joe Biden took a lot of grief back in 2022 when he fist bumped with the Saudi prince on a trip to Saudi Arabia, and this was after Biden said terrible things about him because he was responsible for the death of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post journalist, who was in pieces, put in a suitcase. I mean, he was chopped up and really gruesome stuff. So I guess in the midst of everything else, maybe it doesn't really matter, but why is the president hosting the Crown Prince?
Because he wants to, and because he enjoys his company and he enjoys his dealings with the Saudis and others in that part of the world. Look, the President of the United States And administrations, Democratic, Republican, sometimes have to deal with bad actors. So you have no choice, right? Saudi Arabia controls a lot of the world's energy. Saudi Arabia is in a key region of the world. So George H.W. Bush, way back in the day, had to deal with Bashar Assad when he was the president of Syria. You have to deal with bad actors sometimes. However, you don't have to invite them into the Oval Office. You can meet them in neutral sites. You can have your deputies talk to them. You talk to them directly, except for only when it's necessary. Jim talked a minute ago about solidarity of journalists. It's offensive that somebody, yes, he's the head of a country. The king is not. The king is debilitated, so the crown prince runs Saudi Arabia right now, and so the president of the United States has to deal with him. I get that part, but to give him an Oval Office setting over the objection of some of your people to push to sell him F-35 fighter jets. There's a great fear that the Chinese will get access to that technology through the Saudis if we do that. But the president wants to do it. We'll see if that's what happens. The relationship, if you think about and we're going to talk about Jamal Khashoggi as we should. As journalists, we should stand with our brothers, especially when they're murdered like that. But that's just one example of the human rights abuses and the lack of a law regime of this brutal man and his regime. Giving him a seat in the Oval Office is the choice, and the President of the United States made that choice.
Just as a quick aside, obviously Saudi Arabia has made money because they've got a lot of oil over there, but I was telling Jim this morning, I was listening after reading this really devastating report for the New York Times about we haven't gone to the climate summit, the International Climate Summit this year, and how the reporters were saying it's almost too late for the United States. The manufacturing jobs that we could have right now in oil and wind have all been either shut down or attempted to shut down by the president. China is eating our lunch. Other countries are making deals for cars, for wind blades, for solar with China, and it was really depressing. At the end of the story, the reporter weighed in on whether or not we could catch up, and his opinion was no, because we're so far behind, and the Trump administration has taken away our last chance, which is we wouldn't have to worry about oil-rich companies. We wouldn't be talking all about our energy prices. We wouldn't be talking about drilling off the California coast, but this is, once again, I think one of the most horrible things he's done. Anyway, that's an editorial comment.
That was an excellent editorial, by the way. Hey, John, before you go, are you going to say something there or no?
No, I just think the idea that, the United States should be leading the world in the research for the next generation of this technology, right? And you're right. Yeah, anywhere when the Chinese have just said thank you very much and stepped into this vacuum to make they're not doing it just to be green. They're doing it to make money.
Yeah, and we could be doing it to provide the manufacturing jobs we keep talking about, because they're not going to come back. We're not going to be building brick and mortar buildings. This is the technology that we can use for those good jobs, and we don't.
And you should buy Bill McKibben's book, Here Comes the Sun, which explains yet again, Bill was with us the other day, that solar and wind are not alternative energy. They're the cheapest. Cheaper. And
what do we hear about? Energy prices, electricity prices, gas prices. It's like we're foolish.
Hey, John, quickly, in the last minute or so that we have, yesterday's news becomes last century's news with how fast everything moves. Is anything going on at all? Any discussions about the Obama subsidies that were the reason why the government was shut down for 40 plus days, or is that ancient history?
Well, it sounds just like the President of the United States put on Truth Social this morning that the only health care reform he'll support is giving the money back to the people, which means he still has no plan. We went through this in the first term. Remember, repeal and replace.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's one of the reasons Nancy Pelosi became Speaker in 2018 in the midterms. It looks like the Republicans are having the same health care policy stumble they had then. I'll close with this. I met with the owners of a bike shop here yesterday. Husband and wife team who run a bike shop here. They get their insurance through the Obamacare, the ACA exchange. They just got their letter. Their policy has tripled in costs from last year. They say they can't afford it. They got to find something else. So that's one example of what you're going to hear a lot about in next year's midterm campaigns, unless the president and the Republicans who run all of Washington can figure it out. But we have lived this movie before.
So you know what cracked me up when he said he's going to give everybody money, then they can figure out what their health insurance is.
Right.
I would say good luck with that. If you think you can't read on your little bill from your, the fine print on something you buy at Best Buy, you're going to read the fine print in your health insurance? I mean, really, right?
It's when people band together as you get lower costs. If you just make this survival of the fittest out there and I'm not an insurance expert, but that ain't the way to do it.
John, we have 30 seconds. Will you be going to the Philadelphia Eagles New England Patriots Super Bowl? Yes or no?
If there is one, Jim, I heard Jim Brady's a very influential guy.
Very influential.
That's right.
I know people, John. I can help you out.
I'll wear my Drake May jersey, and you can wear whatever the hell you want.
Thank you kindly. I'll see you there. Hey, John, it's great talking. Again,
you.
Congratulations on the First Amendment Award. No
Thank
one
you very
deserves
much.
it more than you.
Talk to you soon. Have a good time in Pennsylvania. We've been speaking with CNN chief correspondent, national correspondent John King, who goes all around the country doing these interviews with voters, and they're really great reports. Okay, we say goodbye to those of you listening on NEPM. Thank you so much for tuning in to us, you guys out there at NEPM. You can tune in to the fabulous 413 starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The show is going to continue here in Boston. Coming up after the noon news on 89.7 GBH, the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, is going to join us taking our questions and yours. She'll be here from noon to 1 at the Boston Public Library. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Forge Heat Pumps in Newton. Forge's in-house team designs and installs all-in-one heat pump systems that deliver heating and cooling year-round. Details at forgeheatpumps.com. The war for American independence faces its toughest challenge yet as General Washington tries to defend New York City. The American Revolution, the new 6-part documentary from Ken Burns, continues tonight at 8 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of BPR live from the Boston Public Library. It's the November edition of Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, her first appearance on the show since winning re-election. We'll ask her about her trip to Canada and her plans for a second term, everything from housing, affordability, schools, and more.
I'm Marjorie Egan. If you have your own questions for Mayor Wu, give us a call or text at 877-301-8970. Or if you're near Boylston Street, the Back Bay, come on down to the Boston Public Library and ask her in person. It's November's Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, next on the noon hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is extending a ceremonial welcome to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at a level of a state visit. The last time MBS visited was in 2018, months before Saudi agents killed Washington Post columnist and critic Jamal Khashoggi, and U.S. intelligence later determined that Prince Mohammed had likely ordered the hit. Prince Mohammed has long denied involvement and for a time was considered an outcast by many world leaders, but he has since become a powerful influence. President Trump underscored that in his visit to Saudi Arabia in May. And today, both men are set to announce a series of pacts ranging from critical minerals to defense. NPR's Aya Batrawi reports on what Prince Mohammed is hoping to get from this visit.
The biggest deal that's being eyed right now by Prince Mohammed bin Salman isn't actually more billions in weapons sales. He has enough of those. What he wants is a U.S. guarantee against a range of threats in the region, and that means a coveted U.S. defense pact similar to the one Trump signed with Qatar recently after it was attacked by both Iran and Israel over the summer. And this is not a defense treaty, so it doesn't need Congress to approve it, and it is less binding. But it does offer Saudi Arabia guarantees that the U.S. would use military measures if necessary to respond if it's attacked.
NPR's Aya Batrawi reporting. On Capitol Hill, the House is expected to vote this afternoon to compel the Justice Department to release all of its files on the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Here's NPR's Barbara Sprant.
Over the weekend, President Trump encouraged House Republicans to support a measure that would release all unclassified files related to Jeffrey Epstein, who died by suicide in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. That's a major reversal for the president, who's been encouraging Republicans to drop the matter. The administration has already released thousands of files to the House Oversight Committee, but there remain even more that haven't been made public. Should the House pass the measure, its fate is still not clear in the Senate. If it passes both chambers, the president says he'll sign it. Barbara Sprint, NPR News, the Capitol.
The mayor of Raleigh, North Carolina, says immigration officials are now launching operations in her city. WUNC's Bradley George reports.
Raleigh Mayor Janet Cowell says she doesn't know how long the operation will last. She says crime is down in North Carolina's capital city and a federal presence is not needed. In a statement, Cowell asks Raleigh residents to, quote, remember our values and maintain peace and respect through any upcoming challenges. Border Patrol and ICE agents began a sweep through Charlotte over the weekend. The Department of Homeland Security has said it's focusing on North Carolina because of what it calls sanctuary policies that it says limit cooperation between local authorities and immigration agents.
Bradley George reporting. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Brian Walsh is changing his plea from not guilty to guilty in two of the charges against him. Several reports say he's pleading guilty to misleading a police officer and improper conveyance of a human body. The murder charge against him still stands. His plea change comes as jury selection begins today in the case against him. Walsh is accused of murdering his 39-year-old wife, Anna, on New Year's Day, 2023, before allegedly dismembering and discarding her body. Her body was never recovered, and prosecutors have focused on digital evidence to build their case against him. And officials have determined that a deceased sperm whale that washed up on the north shore of Nantucket on Sunday is too big to move for a necropsy. Pam Murphy heads up Marine Mammal Alliance Nantucket.
Given the tides and the size, we will do as thorough an examination in place that we can, taking as many samples as we possibly can.
Murphy estimates the 50-foot male whale weighs about 104,000 pounds. She says the cause of death is yet to be determined, but there's no visible sign of an entanglement. She says there is a gash visible on one side of the whale, but the cause is not obvious. In sports, the Celtics in Brooklyn tonight. They're playing the Nets. In the forecast, sunny and upper 40s today, partly cloudy overnight tonight, low 30, partly cloudy and mid-40s tomorrow, and more of the same for Thursday. Time now for Ask the Mayor on BPR at the BPL. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from relationship challenges and goal setting to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow at 11:30 right here at the Boston Public Library, we're going to speak with the legendary cellist Yo-Yo Ma, who's also going to play for us. I think the mayor's a little bit late. Hello, Jim.
Before she she's here, but she'll be here in about a minute. I was heartened. John King is a very careful analyst.
Yep.
I thought the fact that he said there'd be colossal pressure on the Senate Majority Leader, a Republican, to bring this Epstein thing to a vote, should there be an overwhelming vote, which there appears is going to be in the House, is really heartening. And then let Trump veto it. He says he won't, but let Trump veto it.
A lesser political analyst, that would be me.
Me and you, yes.
Said that earlier, because what is their excuse, right? We don't have to worry about it anymore, though, because the mayor's here.
She is. Now it is time for November's edition of Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She's here for the hour, bearing gifts, as she always does. If you have a question for the mayor, you can call her or text her at 877-301-8970. Or if you're at the library, as that woman is right there, writing down a question that may get to be asked through Zoe, our colleague. Mayor Woods, good to see you.
Good to see you both.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Did you just come from putting up the tree?
Yes, I just ran over. The tree has officially arrived. It is on Boston Common, and we had a nice little ceremony to welcome everyone.
So we were talking with Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston last week, and she was among the reporters who went up to Nova Scotia with you. She talked about there being some concern because Homeland Security, they're not very fond of you in general, Mayor Wu. Tom Homan has said the immigration czar has said some nasty things about you. Was there concern? Did you feel concerned about coming back over the border, that there might be some problem?
I mean, to tell the truth, my team and I did have some conversations about it, and
Really?
It's every day there's some new way of thinking that really is unthinkable. What we have to process now, what families everywhere are having to try to juggle or manage with costs going up, with immigration enforcement, often it seems crossing the lines of the law and the Constitution, and you just never know when citizens are being or at least residents with legal documentation are being detained, and when people are having all sorts of encounters they never expected to with our own government. Thankfully everything went smoothly. And,
but it crossed your mind.
Yeah, we
Their 30s. If I had been holding a chainsaw when they were young to chop down a tree, they'd be talking about it every day for the rest of their lives. Were your kids wild about you and the chainsaw?
You know what? Cutting down a tree is just like cutting red tape.
But I'm bummed.
Okay. So.
Oh, and I need to give you guys both of these.
What do we have going here? Okay,
So these were the goodies from the
that's
actual
great. Thank
tree
you.
cutting event in Martins Brook.
Can we hold these up?
Thank
No,
you.
apparently not. Maybe we can. Well, it says Nova Scotia,
So
Canada.
these are the official
Thank you, Mayor.
beanies that were passed out to all the school children and everyone who was there.
So, Mayor, one last thing about
Wait, can I say one more thing
sure.
about
of
the
course.
chainsaw experience?
Yes.
So, what was there was a moment of, this is going to help me enable discipline in the household for a little while, at least having the kids watch their mom with the chainsaw. But the level of care from everyone in Nova Scotia, the sense of warmth and connection to the story, and maybe most embodied in the chainsaw professor. I don't remember what Waddy Long's official title was, but he has been the one wielding the chainsaw for a decade to do this, the honors of the Tree for Boston ceremony. And when we got there, he said that the bond between our cities was centuries old, this too shall pass, and then he proceeded to tell me every detail of the angle the tree would come down at, the fact that because we were on a slope, it was going to curve this way, we don't want it to come back, so the crane operator's instructed to rotate this way. And as he made the cuts on both sides, it happened exactly in the very narrow space that they had laid for it, and just an amazing experience, and I'm so thankful to everyone who was there and everyone here in Boston who honors that friendship.
Okay. One last thing. Well, actually, forget about it. We'll move on. We were talking with our listeners about the Epstein vote that the House is going to have we expect to release all the Epstein files. The president has done kind of a 180 on this whole thing. He was fighting against it. Now he's for it. What do you think about this whole mess?
There are many more impactful items of business that affect people's daily lives in Boston, right? We hear about prices that are going up, fears about health insurance and coverage being cut, how we are going to just manage the basic life safety of our day-to-day and our identities and all that's happening, one angle after another. It feels all these attacks coming. And at the same time, I think it's helpful because it is just such a stark and clear example of the hypocrisy that is laid bare. Just so political when even someone who has been found to be a pedophile and taken actions of such a horrific nature is being protected by the same types of, I don't even want to use the word leader, the same types of people in power in the regime who say they're for safety, who say they're for this or that, and hold up all of these words. It's one example to remind everyone of just how much politics is at play, politics, self-preservation, and I think most of all from my perch, I wish this would just get settled because it shouldn't have taken so much. Of course, we need to have transparency. Of course, let everyone who has any bit of involvement here have full accountability all the way wherever that takes us. But then let's get to doing the other things too that really matter and really touch people's lives.
Two quick things about this. Do you think we'll ever see the Epstein files?
At some point in the future, I mean, I don't know if it will be in the next 3 years. It seems we're getting more than was anticipated, but I really have to believe that if our democracy and country survives this period, there will be a reckoning and there will need to be accountability.
Speaking of powerful men, before we get to the calls at 877-301-8970, you've got a Harvard connection. Elizabeth Warren obviously has a Harvard connection. Warren said yesterday that Harvard should sever any ties to Larry Summers, former president of Harvard. He has said he will end his public commitments, but will continue teaching at Harvard. Is he taking the right course, or is Warren's position the right course?
Look, I don't know all the details, and I haven't had time or again, many other things to be going through every line of the emails to understand what exactly has come out and why. I do believe that if there is evidence of wrongdoing, there should be accountability for whoever has been involved in this. I don't know enough to say in this case, and certainly believe that having the full context and understanding the full range of which people have been should be held accountable for what is important.
But you do know, none of us know all the details, Mayor, but we do know enough to know that years after Epstein had already pled guilty to prostitution involving a minor under 18 years old, Larry Summers continued the relationship, asked for $1 million for his wife's poetry foundation, sought advice on young women or women who he wanted to date. So while there's no allegation of illegality, as to paraphrase Elizabeth Warren, there are examples of grotesquely poor judgment. Is he fit to teach students like you were at Harvard, in your estimation?
I want us to be in a place where every person that we put in a role of authority and with dynamics of power is leading with full integrity, is fully there for the right reasons. It's not my role to assess, again, what exactly happened and what the fallout should be for those at Harvard or at these other institutions. I think the facts should come out on everyone, including those who I think are holding others out as examples. And we should see full accountability across the board.
We're talking to Mayor Wu. You can contact her at 877-301-8970.
Kirby in Rosendale, thank you for calling.
Hey, Kirby.
Hi there, how are you?
Good.
Good, glad to hear that. I just had a quick question for Mayor Wu about White Stadium. I live in Rosendale, and I love that space as a place to play pickup soccer. I'd love to do that with my colleagues, and so just curious with that project, what the access to the community will be. I know it's often closed, it's been closed later at night, and so after work. So just curious what that plan is for access, as well as like lighting, and really just for the community to be able to use it for recreational purposes.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is exactly one of the most important benefits that we negotiated with the lease agreement, and that is codified into law with the contract. And so, in addition to funds that will be available for maintenance, upkeep, and operation of the full facilities, funds that will go to the larger Franklin Park Action Plan and investments in the surrounding area, resources for young people in Boston Public Schools athletics, and small businesses being involved in the economic development of the entire project. One very important piece is that public access is now guaranteed 16 hours a day, 345 days plus a year. As you mentioned, previously the stadium really was chained up except for 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday when the BPS athletic staff was on site and basically had their offices there. Other than that, there would be a meet here or there, but really the facilities were so run down that we weren't even able to host anything. And the public couldn't even go and walk around the track, much less access the space and play pickup soccer and run, on the stairs in the stadium, et cetera. In the contract, there's a guarantee that our partner, the soccer team, and will provide the funds and the resources to guarantee that it is open 7 days a week. From the hours may shift a little bit, but something like 6 a.m. until 9 or 10 p.m. 16 hours a day, guaranteed for the public. There will be programming packed in as much as possible, even on the nights where there will be a professional women's soccer team game. We'll be able to host a whole track meet or youth facility during the day because the hours have been negotiated that way as well. So if you're curious about all the details, you can go on the City of Boston website, and it's called the Shared Usage Agreement. That is the part of the lease or the legal documentation that lays out exactly what the hours are, but that's been a key part of it. It will be open, it will be available, and it will be maintained.
Thank you, Kirby. We're going to take another call, but if Allie, who I believe had a question, comes to the mic, we'll grab you, Allie, immediately after we talk to Andrew in Brighton. You're on with Mayor Wu. Welcome. Hi,
Andrew.
Hi there, Mayor Wu. First off, congratulations on the election.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to call on the private security company. To see the private AI company is currently mass surveilling, being hired by local municipalities, by private companies.
Can you make this out? Yeah, okay. Continue. I'm sorry, Andrew. The connection's not great. Go ahead.
Can you hear me better now?
Much better. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay. So called Private Company Flock right now is tracking private vehicle locations, and that information is being shared not only with the local state police, but is also being shared with private companies. They've entered an agreement into place with Amazon and are currently sharing data around Ring doorbells. This sounds like the stuff of conspiracy theories, but it's very real. The ACLU of Massachusetts put out a report just yesterday kind of highlighting the concerns. I'd like to know what Mayor Wu is doing to help protect local Boston citizens to ensure our location and information is not being tracked by non-government actors.
Great, thank you. I will take a look at that report. I haven't had the chance to see it yet. One thing that has happened and been implemented over the last few years in Boston happened through a partnership with and coordination with the ACLU of Massachusetts. Was one of the co-authors of an ordinance a few years ago called the Community Oversight Over Surveillance Ordinance that guarantees that any technology that the City of Boston is using or deploying, whether for public safety or traffic management, certain departments, that has very strict and clear protocols on data access, privacy, retention and storage, all of that. And there are public policies that are available that are signed off on by the City Council. The use, though, by non-government actors is something I have to think more about and understand what the city's role is there. So I'll check out the report and follow up to see if there are any recommendations of what we should do.
Andrew, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
We have Allie at the mic. Hi,
Allie.
Thanks
Welcome.
for coming in.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the safety of our streets for families trying to commute with their children to school and work and daycare. My daughter's in K2 at the Sarah Roberts School.
A great school,
I know. We live outside of Forest Hills, so we're not zoned for the bus. She gets to school. My husband and I take her on the bike or walking. My little guy's been in daycare near Green Street, so we take the 32 bus with him. And I have to say, crossing Hyde Park Ave is the scariest thing my family does on a daily basis. I have taken the 32 bus with my son, gotten off at Eldridge. We're in the crosswalk. It is, a pedestrian crosswalk. I made it to the median, and I'm standing there holding him with his backpack and my work bag, and I'm going like this, trying to get cars to stop so I can cross the street. I'm legally in the crosswalk as a pedestrian, and the cars on Hyde Park Ave are going 40 or 50 miles an hour. The same thing happened when I was with him at Walk Hill. We had the light. Not Walk Hill, at Eldridge. Ukraine Street. You can tell I'm very emotional about this. It's really been very scary for my family. So we were at Ukraine Street crossing legally in the crosswalk. 2 cars ran the light. He was this close to getting hit. I'm not someone who's hyperbolic, really. I'm sort of an even-keeled person, but the safety of Hyde Park Ave is really scary for me. And a lot of our neighbors, we've been organizing. We've gone to all the meetings that your administration has been calling, the city councilors have been calling. And so far, it sounds like we're told to wait, and we can't wait. These are kids going to school.
So what's your question,
so
Allie,
how do we make Hyde Park Ave safer?
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for coming here today and being involved and being a BPS parent. I know the intersection and that corridor very well. It's my daily commute as well as a Rosendale resident. And so for anyone who's sort of not mapped on directly in your mind, this is the area right outside Forest Hill Station in the lower busway, and it is the largest transit hub. Buses just constantly pulling in and out of that little driveway area, and then one of the biggest corridors for traffic flow from the southern part of the city up on as well. Of course, the Casey Overpass, which had been the elevated highway flyover, had been taken down a number of years ago, and so it's now much more open, much more residential development has happened there even in the last few years, and now we're in sort of a situation where a very transportation heavy, very congested corridor now is surrounded by brand new residences at a significant increase in housing, which is exactly how it should be. I almost wish the housing had gone higher in that area because it is right next to the station. But the mix of uses there is something that definitely needs to be addressed. The challenge that I want to make sure we are working through as a city, though, is that if you were to basically put a bubble around that area, it would be very clear what to do, right? We probably would do a road diet and focus on pedestrian safety and make sure that, similar to some of the changes we've made in other parts of the city, there's just a massive slowing down of vehicles and reshifting of that space. The challenge is that even when the light signals were adjusted somewhat in the last year or two, it is such a connected corridor, high traffic, major thoroughfare, that the backups and congestion that it caused, even by changing the signal a bit, was all the way through, just a significant distance away into Jamaica Plain and in other areas. If we were to cut down that area in front of Forest Hills from the 2 lanes that it is now to just 1 lane in every direction, we need to study more and understand it fully, but the proposal that has been put forward by residents who understandably want to make sure that immediate area is safe for walking, it would mean a very drastic change in the traffic patterns and likely a lot more congestion in that area for everyone trying to move through, the buses trying to come out, and all of that. So I think there are elements that we need a little bit of a... I know having safe cycling infrastructure is a really important part of that as well. I've instructed the team to think about is there private land or is there another route that part could go on that would free up a little bit more space so that we could do more of the safety infrastructure. I don't want us to have it as an on or off switch of either we go to something that feels safe for pedestrians, but then almost disastrous for many of the drivers who are coming in from further away in other neighborhoods in the city, or something that is disastrous for pedestrians but keeps the traffic flow going. There are other ways that we need to work through that, and it is on the radar and on the priority list for our streets team to take on.
Allie, thank you very much for asking the question. We appreciate it.
Mayor Wu, 9 workers were detained by ICE at this Alston car wash a few days back. 5 women, 4 men. A couple of them are going to be released soon on bond. But I wonder, there's been a lot of blowback because some kid from BU was bragging about how he got ICE to go there and make these arrests, and there's been a lot of blowback against him. But in any case, I'm wondering when this happens, especially when some of the workers, many of them had legal status and valid work permits, which were in their cubbies at the car wash. What is your role when these kinds of things happen? Can the mayor's office do anything? The city do anything? What's the deal?
I heard immediately from our local city councilor, Liz Braden, who, of course, is connected to her community, and residents were already mobilizing when the detentions first happened to try to warn other people and make sure that, to the extent that there could be monitoring, that was happening. If you remember, that was also on election day. So
That's right.
There was a great concern that was either timed in a way or would unintentionally have the impact of chilling people coming out to vote and feeling free to exercise the rights that they do have as well. So there was some immediate stepping in on that front just to continue monitoring the safety of everyone getting to the polls and reaching out and then trying to work wherever possible. There are some things that are happening through the advocacy community and through funds that the city is directing or highlighting ways for private philanthropic dollars to support legal representation in cases of detention. We know when someone has a lawyer, they are that much more likely to have a just resolution to their case. And then in the situations, thankfully, where justice is still done, and even after the initial harm happens, people are rightfully brought back to their family or returned to the community. There's a lot of deep trauma then for children whose parents had been missing for some time, or families that then decided to uproot themselves, or businesses, other people who witness this, customers, neighbors in the area. So we're doing our best to try to do what we always do, which is keep people safe. But our understanding of safety is very different than the federal government's understanding of safety right now, where they are actively undermining all that makes us connected and strong as a community. This was a local business that many people rely on, that I've heard from many customers does an excellent job.
2 of them are right here, by the way. We are.
Yeah, spawn for your car. To the inside of your car. It's really nice.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the feeling that we're now just, I don't know, maybe going back to the surveillance question, in a surveillance state where anyone could be reported for any we, as a city, will not stand for mass deportation. We will not participate in it. We will do everything that we can to protect our community. Elections do have consequences at the federal level, and federal immigration enforcement is a purview of that particular
Boston
entity.
cops cannot step in and do anything in that situation. They cannot prevent ICE from taking
Well, they can
these
protect
people.
ICE from if violence or misbehavior is being directed at an ICE agent.
Right,
correct?
but they
only
can't
that
step in and
to help
prevent
them.
ICE from taking people out of the car wash. That's what I meant.
If there were to be a large-scale event or demonstration, Boston police are always there, no matter what the situation is. But we will not participate in cooperating in mass deportations, and we will continue to hold the line on following the law, following the Constitution, and I wish our federal government would do the same.
A couple of quick things before we take our one break. You obviously support rent stabilization. You filed a home rule petition, which legislators from other parts of the state think they know better than you in the city council, but that's unfortunately how it works. We asked you about a rent control ballot question that was just filed in the summer. And what you said to us on the show, it would not be what I would have supported for the city of Boston. I'm going to have to figure out what to do about this because this may be the only shot for a while. The Globe did a story the other day that unions are supporting them, which makes it much more likely that they'll get the signatures required. It doesn't require legislative approval, but it is a more restrictive provision than you had in terms of how much rents could go up. So after that endless intro, what's your position on the question?
I haven't yet had a chance after the city election to sit down with the advocacy community and really sort through. So I haven't taken a public position yet on this. Again, my belief is that housing costs are the biggest liability for the future of our city and state economy, that we are seeing an exodus of working age people, young people. Seniors are finding it harder to stay in the communities they're rooted in, families with kids, just the ends not meeting, and housing costs driving all of that. So we have to produce more housing, and we have to stabilize people in the housing they have. I wish that the ballot initiative had been just a pure local option, repeal the ban on cities taking action, and let each city do what they need to do, because the conditions can be quite different in each municipality depending on your local economy and the mix of commercial, residential, and all that. So I have not yet weighed in on this, but we'll be sorting through and sitting down.
Even
with
if it's
folks.
imperfect by your standards, if it's the only game in town, can you imagine a situation where you'd say people should vote no?
I don't know. I would probably stay out more than anything else, but it is quite restrictive, and we do need to be at the right balance between not chilling or preventing housing production while we are keeping people in their homes as we try to boost the supply and create more housing.
Okay, before we take a break, a lot of our listeners say all of the other shows in town have quizzes for politicians. You never do a what's that face? What is that?
I feel like I'm quizzed nonstop.
Okay, well, no, you're not. Here is a
That's
quiz.
right.
It's a music
Excellent
quiz.
point.
Someone told me you play the piano. Is that true? Okay, here's a music quiz, and it's simple. You have to identify who the performers are in this piece. That's not that hard, right? Okay, here it is. Can we have the music, please?
Oh, no.
Let's listen. Let's
listen.
listen.
Where'd
a
you
little
get
bit.
this from?
We have to listen there. It's a hell of a cellist. Piano player's not so bad.
No,
Can we hear a
not
little
bad.
more? Okay, so apparently that's a cello and a piano. You have 15 seconds. Who would the two performers be, please?
The piece is The Swan by Saint-Saëns, and it is Yo-Yo Ma accompanied by a very humble amateur pianist.
Who would that be?
Who's standing before you right now.
That would be the mayor of the city of Boston. By the way, we want to thank Roger Brown, former president of Berkeley, who was kind enough to share a video and sound
I will
from
put
your
in a plug,
performance.
if it wasn't on your radar already, that Yo-Yo Ma will be at Boston Symphony Hall this Friday, the 21st, doing the complete Bach cello suites.
So here's the second quiz. Where's he going to be tomorrow at 11:30?
How do you know all this?
Wait, no. No, you don't know.
Oh, okay. Oh, tomorrow. Never mind.
Tomorrow.
Never mind.
Wait
Okay,
a second. Whoa. Whoa, don't even try. How do we know all this and that's the end?
There's something in the works. Yeah.
Okay, where's he going to be tomorrow at 11:30?
Is it here?
Right
Yes.
here.
Okay, great.
Right here playing.
I think he's going to play one of the cello suites for
Mayor
us
Wu,
tomorrow. Doesn't get much
Mayor
better
Wu,
than that.
if you think you're leaving here without answering that question,
I thought you were talking about the day after
yeah,
that.
sure. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
What's
What's happening the day after that?
There may be something in the works with this concert on Friday.
Maybe
Okay.
something in the works. Okay.
We got to take a break.
That's the voice of Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston. She's going to be with us until the top of the hour. I'm Marjorie Egan, he's Jim Browder. You're listening to Ask the Mayor, BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Love is messy. It's not always candlelight and slow jams. Sometimes it's mixed signals, awkward dates, bad timing, or falling for someone wildly inappropriate. Again. We're looking for true personal stories that go beyond the fairy tales to explore the mischances and the highs and lows of falling in love. Submit your story to Stories from the Stage today at worldchannel.org/storytellers.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Classic Harbor Line, offering classic yacht cruises throughout the holiday season in Boston and New York City, including Coco and Carol's, live jazz, and holiday brunch cruises. More at classichairborline.com. And Gordon College, presenting the 35th Annual Christmas Gala, a North Shore celebration of Christmas music and carols, December 3rd through 6th. Ticket information available at gordongala.com. And Standish Village in Dorchester's Lower Mills, providing assisted living residents with programs designed to help seniors stay sharp, social, and independent. Learn more at standishvillage.com/programs. And Boston Ballet, presenting the Nutcracker. This holiday tradition mesmerizes audiences of all ages with beloved characters and Tchaikovsky's memorable score. On stage starting November 28th. Official tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to BPR. We are live at the Boston Public Library, and we're halfway through November's Ask the Mayor, of course, with Michelle Wu. You can call her or text her at 877-301-8970, or go see Zoe, our colleague right there, and ask her a question face-to-face.
We have a question from Gabriel.
Gabriel, you around? Hey there. Take it away, Gabriel.
Thank you. The young people of Boston do not feel as if they are allowed the pursuit of freedom. They just barely live in small, shared apartments, fight for a few dull, unfair jobs, and even worse, usually they fight for ones that are, if they want to actually live in their own apartment, they have to go for ones that are even worse, that they have to do something that they're not really comfortable with. What are your plans to make sure our very talented 20-year-olds can actually make real money doing what they want to do? Have the power to change our city and be able to not rent, but own their own places.
Gabriel, thanks for the question.
Great, thank you. And thank you for speaking up on behalf of so many. Okay, a couple things I want to mention here that we've been working on. One is that in terms of housing, again, going back to how we need more housing, we need every sector of our city to pitch in on that, and even a little bit of easing up on it can create the space for a lot more opportunity. One very exciting recent development was that the City of Boston and Northeastern signed a renegotiated institutional master plan and pilot agreement. All of the acronyms are basically the commitments that the university makes as a good neighbor in the city. And for the first time, the university is contributing to a housing fund that the city has that will help create more housing for young people and young professionals. The university is also committed to having moving more student housing on campus, therefore freeing up some housing that young professionals could move into after graduation. And also some other local amenities like creating more access to a park and this and that, the other. We also have expanded the number of deed-restricted units that are targeted to certain income levels that are available by lottery. And so we've produced more deed-restricted housing over the last 4 years than in any comparable 4-year period. And worked with banks and lawyers and lending institutions to create a co-purchasing program so that for the many buildings in Boston that are multifamily homes, think of triple-deckers throughout the city or a two-family home, you might be able to afford to share that house with someone else if you each own your own part of it, or even to own one and rent it out to someone else. But coming up with a whole down payment all together in one fell swoop is too much. This program allows for people to come together and use their collective purchasing power to become homeowners, and we hope that this is a program that more multi-generational families and more young people might take on. And then just in terms of your other part of your question of how to get involved, we have 2 places I would send you to in the city website and the city departments. One called our OYA office, Office of Youth Engagement and Advancement. This is for our annual Mayor's Youth Summit. It is usually students more so than young professionals, but one place where young people are really engaged and have a leadership role. And then we also have a Spark Council, which is our young professionals advisory group, and they also meet and give us recommendations on policy and get involved.
Thanks so much for your question. Can I follow up on the pilot payment in lieu of taxation, because these universities are obviously tax exempt? There was a story in the Globe a bunch of years ago saying that roughly 50% of the property in Boston was tax exempt. Churches, is that pretty much where it is today? Yep. What leverage do you have with the Northeastern and everybody else to say to them, you're not paying your fair share? And almost none of them are paying what their property tax would be if they weren't exempt. What leverage do you have?
Yeah, that's right. So I'll answer the question, but first I just want to say also that the current context is also very difficult. When we started conversations with universities around pilot renegotiations 3 years ago, it was on a dedicated track. Universities were recovering from the pandemic. It was still a lot to talk about. And now with the attacks on research funding, NIH program, all of that, free speech and academic freedom in general, it has become even more difficult. So that just just to show and to give even greater kudos to Northeastern for stepping up and recognizing the need to dig down deep and really increase their contribution, their cash contributions, their partnerships with the city in this very difficult moment. I will say, this agreement was negotiated alongside the Institutional Master Plan, which is a 10-year plan that approves any redevelopments that a university is going to make on their campus footprint over the next 10 years. Wanting to fix Matthews Arena, for example, and reinvest, or wanting to build a new dorm or another building. That all requires city involvement and sign-off, and so we were able to kind of have one large conversation about all those pieces.
Stan and Jack, if you get to actually, you're there pretty quickly. So is this like a two-man operation here or what?
Well, it's more like 300. We have a petition here from 300 Cleveland Circle residents who really are frustrated that years of neglect have received very little response from the city, empty promises, but no repaving. That's what we need. As you probably know, the Boston Globe called it the worst intersection in the city. And Zoe here, your own intern, just told me that she crashed there. We really need help. We asked Phil Eng here a few months ago if he would commit to do his part, and he did. He promised he would come out to Cleveland Circle and see the conditions, and he promised he would facilitate the MBTA's role in what needs to be done there. But the city has not responded. So my question to you is, will you commit to get Cleveland Circle repaved this season or next spring?
Well, I like to make promises that I know I can keep, and without consulting my team about all the details, I don't want to promise that, although I will say I will promise to make every effort to do so. I've gotten briefed a little bit on Cleveland Circle, and as you mentioned, a lot of it has been tied up with the MBTA's plans and if there will be different kinds of changes, and because they occupy so much of that footprint, even the repaving needs to be done in close concert with them. So I will prioritize making sure that we have the right conversations with the T. Thank you for getting Phil and the MBTA team on board. And yes, this is, I could probably list the other couple of intersections too that I know there are petitions out and others who want to make sure we move quickly.
Can they be in touch with somebody in your office to do follow-up after you've had that discussion? Who would that be?
Yes, we will get your information here.
Okay, if you go over, no, we don't do follow-ups because we had a lot of stuff, but if you come over here and speak to one of Mayor Wu's staff people, they'll reach out to you. Mayor Wu, we had an incredible couple of people on the show yesterday. Fuquan McGee, who just finished serving 28 years in prison for a murder that he was convicted of, life without parole at 19, and all the charges were dismissed at the request of the Suffolk County DA the other day. And during that Jacqueline Fonseca, who works at the New England Innocence Project, who is now his partner, who does wonderful work for people who get out. The judge in his decision said he was deeply troubled by, I'm paraphrasing, by the misconduct by Boston homicide officers 28 years ago when this happened. And he wanted officials to find out, one, identify them, and two, investigate whether or not those cops had any involvement in any other cases that where a conviction might be suspect. Is this something that you ensure happens? Do you reach out to the DA, to Commissioner Cox? What role, if any, do you have in this?
I will check with Commissioner Cox. 28 years ago is a significant, most likely retirements happened or even more. And the department is significantly different now from then. But I'll look into if there are any pieces that we could follow through on and make sure that there's justice done.
But at minimum, you can identify the officers and find out what cases there were. And will you will your office let us know what the result of that? That's great.
Yeah, we'll follow up and get the
That's
details.
wonderful. We appreciate that.
Just one more question before we get back to the calls and texts. Story in the Globe talking about the Seaport District. I didn't realize they fund 1/10 of Boston's property taxes. There's so many restaurants out there, so many condos and stuff like that. But the concern is that it's short-lived because it's sinking and the Atlantic is coming in and taking over it. What realistically can be done? You've got these high rises. Do we just wait, I guess, until they're underwater? Or you can't really save them, I don't think, can you?
the city has done a ton of work with UMass Boston and the Green Ribbon Commission and many of our climate partners to map out exactly where the floodwaters will be at different levels of inundation and with the 1 in 100, 1 in 500 year storm levels. We know where the critical paths are. The seaport is obviously on many of those maps. And there are places where we're already moving to deployables that are prepared in advance. So think, instead of sandbags that take a long time to fill one by one and aren't that reliable and you have to have a lot of notice, metal barriers that keep the water away, that have pre-drilled holes so that as soon as the weather report says, they immediately get put up there, blocking off the doors and blocking off the key flood paths, for example, around Aquarium Station and areas that really got knocked out in the, I forget what it was called, the bombogenesis or something storm like from a number of years ago. In the meantime, we are going to, or from now until we figure out how to manage all of the coastline, we are going to need some major funding to do so. So we know what we need to do. We have mapped out all 47 miles of Boston's coastline. A lot of it is privately held and will need significant resources. And then even the public part will need likely federal government involvement at some point in time. We are in the process of working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They have a multi-year assessment process where they go and they measure and they look at every little bit of vulnerability. Once their process is done, that can unlock funding once it becomes a national priority and on their list in the scale of billions of dollars. The time scale for that kind of study is to wrap up somewhere in the 2028-ish timeline, which I had been really frustrated by when we kicked this off, but now maybe that is seeming like we will be in, knock on wood, almost different times at the federal environment for respecting science and climate change and being willing to partner once again. So we're doing all the prep work that we can at the scale of individual buildings and working with property owners and doing all the prep and mapping. And then at some point, we're going to have to figure out a way to really finance all of it.
Have you ever seen David Abel, formerly of the Globe's terrific film Inundation District?
Yeah, I am briefly in it.
Oh, of course you are. That's right. You paused a long time when Marjorie asked you that question, which led me to believe that you do have some doubt about saving the seaport. Am I reading something into it that I shouldn't?
No, I mean, I'll just say this. When I was in Rome, when we were at the Vatican for the Pope's, the late Pope Francis's Summit on Climate Change, it was the premier minds, climate scientists from all around the world who were gathered there. And the first thing they did when we got there was to give us an overview of where we are, according to the goals that had been set. In 2018, there was a UN climate panel, the IPCC report, International Panel on Climate Change. I think they came up with a deadline that we had 12 years to fix this and get emissions down, otherwise it would be too late. And so now we are multiple years into that window, and what the scientists said to us is, we're now at the point where some of the worst case scenarios have now become the best case scenarios, and we are no longer able to avoid the harms of dipping above the threshold that will cause very serious consequences for food systems around the world, major weather events, etc. The challenge now is how do we, as quickly as possible, drag ourselves back down below that threshold with scientific innovation, technology, new things that our climate tech industry has to be working on now to make it work. I am going to make sure that Boston does everything we can to be leading in that way and to be directing our efforts to lighting the beacon that can still create hope and action for this. But there are many parts of how we understand and move around our society and our world right now that we know will not be possible with a 50-50 chance or greater, especially if we continue how we've been.
Before I get back to the calls, in a semi-related note, which is good news, you announced this, I think I got the name, Boston Energy Saver Program. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Can you tell us briefly what that is and how people can access it?
There are lots of resources available for residents to access energy efficiency measures, home improvements, solar panels, conversion from oil tanks to heat pumps that will save you money. And especially as the energy costs are going up and weather is getting colder, we want to encourage everyone to reap the benefits of better insulation and the things that you can do that are actually fairly minor in terms of, you don't need to knock down your whole house and rebuild the building. You can make spaces much more energy efficient and keep that money in your pocket, and then contribute the savings in the electrical grid back to what energy is needed for. Many people don't know how to access these programs. They are famously convoluted with lots of different checkpoints and this and that. We have created a program in partnership with utilities and with the state that will help navigate and really simplify all of that. So you just have to call one number or go on boston.gov/save, and someone will walk you through your exact energy bill, your home situation, and identify everything that you possibly qualify for to get you situated with all the rebates and home improvements so that you can start saving money.
Boston.gov/save. Great.
Here's a text message. Mayor Wu, there was a murder, I don't know about this, but yesterday allegedly committed by a man who had been released under the so-called the Valley Protocol because the Suffolk County attorneys are refusing to accept the $10 raise the legislature offered. This texter wants to know if you have a position on the bar advocates' request for a raise of $35 per hour to get them back to work in Suffolk's and Middlesex counties. There's a fight over not enough money, and the legislature offered them a raise, and the attorneys wouldn't take it, and people are being released because they don't have legal representation.
I don't know the backstory of this particular incident, and we'll look into it, but I will add, of course, we need to make sure that justice is served, and again, the Constitution needs to be followed, and the provisions and the values that make our country who we are, like due process, like representation for those who are accused of a crime, need to be followed. And that is the bedrock of our society. At the same time, at the local level, it is very difficult when parts of our justice system or legal system are not functioning. And when police departments and local community members are doing their job by reporting crimes, following up, doing the investigation, presenting the cases, and then when that next step in accountability doesn't happen, it kind of starts to unravel everything else. And so there's been, I think, some important steps forward in the most recent steps around the changes here, and I think we've experienced some relief, and I hope that that continues to hold. My understanding is that in the bigger picture, having more funding for CPCS, the Committee for Public Counsel Services, will also be a really important investment at the Commonwealth level so that people have representation in due process.
By the way, CBB, a man accused of killing someone in Mattapan this weekend had criminal charges dropped less than a month earlier. Javante Robinson, 29, criminal charges dropped in a previous case. Court records indicate he was facing weapons and drug charges. They were dismissed when an attorney could not be found after 45 days. Mitch and Lowell, you're on with the mayor of Boston. Hi. Mitch.
Mitch, yeah. Mitch,
you're Mitch, not me. You're Mitch.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I hope I hear that parking meters.
This is not going well.
Yeah.
So he told Mitch, you told.
We can't hear you.
He told our call screener he wanted to know if you knew about privately owned parking meters in the very same seaport. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay. So where does that does? Where should he report that to if he believes that to be true?
Please let us know at the city level. There's my mind is going to maybe there's one because the seaport was developed very quickly and it was privately owned and there was not public infrastructure there. We're still feeling a lot of the pieces of that in that it's an area of the city that doesn't have a lot of the civic amenities like a library. We are just now in construction with an EMS station for ambulances to be there, but it really needs for the residential population more civic amenities. The way that the street grid happened was often that the private parties had to basically let the city use certain bits of their land to build the streets so that the rest of the seaport and infrastructure could be developed. And in those days, years ago, sometimes some of the sidewalks, for example, are privately owned because they weren't seeded all the way over to the city. So I don't know if this is related to it. It should not be possible for there to be private parking meters, but I will look into it to be sure.
It'd be Mayor, tell us about this program that people can get help on their energy costs.
We just did.
We just did?
That was the one I did.
Boston.gov/save. Go and you can get a free consultation and.
Guess I wasn't listening to you, Jim.
It wasn't that interesting. What I had to say, what she had to say was great.
Okay.
Now, I know you wanted to spend the last minute explaining the secret about Yo-Yo Ma to our audience. So feel free. Take all the time you want. Mayor, go ahead.
I will say that growing up, Yo-Yo Ma it almost felt like he was another member of my family. Of course, I'd never met him, never had any dreams or sense that I would ever get to meet him. But my mom especially always talked about him because he was one of the few Asian Americans and Chinese Americans that was publicly known at that time. And so she made my brother play cello, right? There was, so it was always, you could be successful one day if you just work hard, you could be like Yo-Yo Ma. So to know that he is an incredible leader and amazing member of our community here in the greater Boston area, and that he does so much, not just culturally, but to steer us to goodness and togetherness in the world. I'm very, very
How'd she
thankful.
react quickly to hearing you were playing with him?
I don't know if she fully believes it yet. I need to get that clip from you so I can show her.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay.
Mayor Wu, thanks for your time. We'll see you in December.
Thank you very much,
And
Mayor Wu.
congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you
We didn't
very
say that at the beginning.
We've been speaking with the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. We thank her very much for her time. She's going to be back again next month. Coming up after this quick break, NBC Sports Boston Trenni Casey is going to join us. She's going to tell us about this disaster, I think, for football and basketball and all kinds of sports fan. Streaming services are about to ruin your ability to follow your team easily through the season. NBC Sports Boston Trenni Casey is next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
New Englanders are curious, informed, and engaged, and that's why Champion Circle members invest in GBH with annual gifts of $900 or more. It's just one way to make a big impact. Learn more at gbh.org/champion-circle.
Support for GBH comes from you and the Daughters of the American Revolution, dedicated to preserving and celebrating the individuals who contributed to securing independence for our country 250 years ago. Resources and membership info at dar.org. And New England Botanic Garden at Tower Hill, presenting Nightlights, a celebration of the season with dazzling light displays and festive activities for all ages, November 22nd to January 4th. nebg.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News, what matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR live from the Boston Public Library. We'll start with NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey on the absolute nightmare of an experience that is being a sports fan in the era of streaming, the cost of watching your favorite teams. And are those extra cushioned helmets really protecting football players from head injuries?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then as the cost of clothes ticks upward, more and more people are opting to rent their clothes. We'll open the phone and text lines. Is this one solution to America's toxic relationship with fast fashion? And more broadly, what's your relationship with buying stuff, renting things, and never-ending online returns? And the real issue, why can't Jim find a reputable website that'll let him rent a dickie? Weigh in next in the third hour at BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is visiting the White House for the first time since the 2018 killing of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. While taking questions from journalists a short time ago, an ABC News reporter asked President Trump if this visit to the White House, that's expected to include announcements of defense, energy, and AI deals, is a conflict of interest due to the Trump family's business with Saudi Arabia.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful.
The same reporter asked the Crown Prince his thoughts after U.S. intelligence concluded he had approved Khashoggi's murder in 2018.
It's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that. And it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Prince Mohammed has denied involvement in Khashoggi's killing. President Trump railed against the reporter for the question, describing it as disrespectful to his guest. Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged sex trafficking network spoke out on Capitol Hill today with a bipartisan group of lawmakers. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports this comes as the U.S. House is on track to take up a bill today to force the release of government files tied to the disgraced financier and convicted sex offender.
Survivor after survivor told harrowing stories of the abuse they suffered, and many asked President Trump to stop injecting politics into their fight. Jenna Lisa Jones said pushing for the release of the Epstein files has been distressing as Trump has gone back and forth on supporting it.
I voted for you, but your behavior on this issue has been a national embarrassment.
Trump had fought the House vote to release the records, but reversed course this past weekend to say Republicans should vote for it. Now the GOP-led House is on track to approve the plan with near unanimous support, sending it to the Senate. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, the Capitol.
A judge has approved a settlement of thousands of opioid-related lawsuits against Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin. And under the agreement, members of the Sackler family who own the company will contribute up to $7 billion over time and give up ownership. The opioid epidemic has been linked to more than 900,000 deaths in the United States since 1999. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was down 538 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Brian Walsh of Cohasset has pled guilty to 2 charges in the case where he's accused of killing his wife, Anna. The charges include misleading a police officer and improper conveyance of a human body. Here's how it went down in Norfolk Superior Court earlier today.
Willfully mislead various law enforcement to include members of the Cohasset Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police with the intent to impede or interfere with a criminal investigation of Anna Walsh's disappearance.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Diane Frenier speaking there. Jury selection in Walsh's trial and the remaining murder count continues today, with the trial set to begin on December 1st. City of Cambridge expects to lose more than $8 million in federal housing funding after the Trump administration adjusted requirements for the use of continuum of care funding. It's a change that could cut housing support for thousands of residents. The Crimson reports that the Cambridge City Council was informed of the expected loss of funding during the council's meeting last night. Cambridge's federal housing funding comes from 2 grants. One is the Continuum of Care program, and the other is from emergency housing vouchers. The city expects to lose $4.6 million of the $6.4 million it receives through the Continuum of Care program. That money currently provides housing to 214 Cambridge individuals, as well as families transitioning from homelessness. 45 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow At 11:30 here at the Boston Public Library, we are going to be joined by the legendary cellist Yo-Yo Ma. I just heard the mayor talking about him, how what event in her life growing up. He's going to perform right here at the library right around 11:30. And Thursday, Jonathan Van Ness is going to join us as well. Hello, Jim.
We're going to grill Yo-Yo Ma. We didn't do well enough with the mayor in terms of telling us what they're doing, but we're really going to grill this guy.
That's right.
I'm counting on you, Marjorie.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we're now joined by Trenni Casey. Trenni is an anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a BPR contributor. Welcome, Trenni. It's nice to see you. Hello there. We're good.
Okay,
We're good.
so maybe I'm making too much of this, Trenni, but this could be a real tragedy for the weekends or even during the week of sports lovers all across America, because they've got the professional teams have made all these deals now with the streamers.
Yeah,
and so they're not going to be able to watch their teams in the regular way.
I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, right? So this conversation has been, it's been brought up a number of times, but this one in particular was sparked by a column written by Stephanie, I don't know what her last name is, Stephanie Hayes in The Atlantic.
Yep.
And she is a big Knicks fan, and she wrote this column saying, I can't watch my local team anymore. Like, I already subscribe to MSG Plus, which is Madison Square Garden. That's the home of the Knicks and the Nets and the Rangers. And so I already subscribe to them, but when they are playing at certain places, it's blacked out locally. And now their games are also on Amazon Prime, and they are also on Peacock, and they're also on ESPN, and I don't have cable, so I need all these other things. To which, as I'm reading it, as I am perusing her article, she talks about something about cable television. I think to myself, well, Stephanie, did you ever have cable television? Because when everybody had cable television, we didn't have all these streaming services because people got their everything in one place. And regional sports networks, like the one I work for, so this is definitely personal for me, were the main home for your local sports teams. But people didn't want cable anymore. They wanted to be able to watch TV wherever they were and put it on their phone. And so it became very fractured. It's a complicated issue. So it's partially that, right? Everybody decided to cut the cord. But the problem is cable brought all of these different networks together. And now networks are trying to monetize. Like, what's it all about? It's always about money. They're trying to monetize, so they each have their own separate streaming networks. Sports are very lucrative. People will pay to watch sports. So my parent company, Amazon, Disney, ESPN, they pay billions with a B dollars in order to have the rights to sports. And in this case, it's the NBA. So now you have NBA games on Prime, NBC. You have NBA games on your local regional network, like NBC Sports Boston, and you also have NBA games on ESPN, ABC. Now me, I have cable. So guess what? I can watch, and I work for, full disclosure, I work for NBC, so I get Peacock for free.
Yeah.
So I get to watch it that way. I have a Prime membership, so I can watch it on Prime. But that's just sort of how it is. I was actually looking, and as I was reading it, I was thinking, well, Stephanie, do you know how I'm reading the article that you wrote in The Atlantic? I pay for The Atlantic. I pay for the Washington Post. I pay for the Wall Street Journal. I pay for the Boston Globe. I just looked at my tax write-offs from last year because being in media, I write off like my media stuff on taxes. I spent like $2,600 last year on streaming and newspapers and magazine subscriptions, because I want to be informed. Like that's just
so wait a minute.
Like that's kind of what our world has become. I don't like it either. I wish you would all come back to cable. I wish everybody would plug those cables right back in and tape that cord back together. But you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
You're ruining her day. I have to say, and I had no idea why. Every meeting we have had since this article came out in the morning, Marjorie out of nowhere, we're talking about Trump bombing Venezuela, and she said, how about the fact that I got to pay $630 to watch the NBA?
Hold on, but you're saying
watch the NBA.
Exactly.
I do when they get to the finals. You know,
luckily for you, you can watch that on ABC.
But here's the thing I want to be clear about that. You're saying with those of us who still have cable, we should be fine?
Here is the problem. You're not fine. That is the problem, right? Because you're trying to serve so many different audiences that now you can't just turn on. Like you used to be able to just, if you have cable, turn on the TV and watch most Celtics games on NBC Sports Boston, and then you could watch some other games on, maybe ABC or ESPN, which all are part of your cable package.
Right.
Well, now you can't. You have to. Some
the
are only on
separate streaming.
Peacock.
Okay.
Some are only on Amazon Prime. It's all about money, and everybody
it's gonna
wants
get
access.
Very expensive.
Yes,
then for
something.
people.
No,
listen,
it's not going to get. Excuse me.
It is
This piece
expensive.
says to watch the NBA, all the games this woman wants to watch. There are 10 networks, and she's got to spend $630.
Okay, so I don't know.
No,
to
she
watch
said
a game.
$1,000.
Oh, 1,000. Okay, well,
I
that's
don't
even
know
worse.
if it's 10 networks. So my guess is to watch the Knicks, she would need to either have cable and have access to MSG Network in the greater New York City area or wherever she lives, or have MSG Plus, which she says is $30 a month, which is kind of the going rate for, that's what Nesson, our competition, who has the rights to it's same for hockey too, like hockey, baseball. If you want to watch baseball now, it's on a regional network. It's on ESPN. It's on Apple TV, and I think maybe they also have some games on Prime or about to have some games on Prime.
So what about going to bars?
Oh, my God. How much are we going to talk about this already?
Well, it's a big deal. I mean,
it is a big deal
because people
Marjorie's
plan
right,
their
because-
life. You know, you get together every Sunday, you watch certain games on TV. If it's the NFL, and we're not talking about the NFL
So
right
the
now.
NFL is the one that's still pretty accessible to the average viewer.
Yeah.
Because all of their games, they have because they only have they play 17 games a season plus 2 preseason games and the postseason. All of their games are on broadcast networks outside of ESPN. Oh, and it's on Amazon Prime. But what the NFL does is because it's only once a week, and you only play Thursday Night Football once a season.
Right.
So when the Patriots, many of you might have noticed this on Thursday night, if you watch the Patriots but you're not an Amazon Prime subscriber, WCVB, the local ABC affiliate, was also able to broadcast it over the air. So the NFL, because it only happens once a week, does a crossover thing where you can, if your local team is on a streaming service, a local station will also pick up that broadcast.
Okay.
And air it for
Could you do me a favor? I'm going to make a few calls. Can you yell? I'll be over there as soon as you're done this conversation.
I mean, it is frustrating because everything is getting more expensive. And if you're a
Everything's getting more
sports fan-
expensive on the top of everything else. You can't even watch the damn sports.
And at the end of the day, it lines the pockets once again. It
Yes.
lines the pockets of billionaire owners
Good,
and
Okay,
100 millionaire players. Blah blah blah.
Okay,
That's
before we get
It'll
to-
change at some point. I just don't know when, and I'm really sorry. But please,
Jim
watch
doesn't
NBC
care.
Sports
Jim
Boston
doesn't
Nightly.
care.
Okay, now
let him
before,
eat cake. He
before
says,
we
let
get
him
to
eat
the, no,
cake.
I'm not. Before we get to the next topic, we were talking before about. I said to Jamie during the break, are any of the reporters in the Oval Office asking any tough questions of the Crown Prince?
Oh, did you see the thing of the ABC
or
thing?
let me just 1 second. Or of Trump. Here's what Trump opened. This is with the Crown Prince, who, as we know, violates human rights in every breath he takes. Was found to be responsible for the assassination and dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi. Here's what Trump said opening. What he's done is incredible in terms of human rights and everything else. Asked about Khashoggi, Trump lashed out at a reporter who asked the question, saying she didn't have to, quote, embarrass our guests. He called Khashoggi controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about, whether you like him or didn't like him.
God.
Things happen. But he, meaning the Crown Prince, knew nothing about it, even though our own intelligence sources said that he directed and ordered the assassination of this guy. I mean, I'm sorry.
He also said that an ABC, I saw the bottom line on
This is
CNN.
Trump?
This is Trump. Also said an ABC reporter should have her credential revoked because she asked about the Epstein files.
Well, that was the
Is that the one he called Miss
Quiet
Piggy?
Piggy. It may have been. So can we move to another obsession of mine?
Yes.
Concussions in football. We've discussed this 1,000 times. When I first did work with the Concussion Legacy Foundation, I met Chris Nowinski, Ann McKee, Dr. Cantu, these incredible people who did both exposed and I think are educating the public in great, as do you, about great things. These soft helmets, what are they called again? It begins with a G.
Oh, I honestly can't
Whatever
remember.
the
And I
name
just
is.
read the article about MIT.
They're these
and
soft
I can't,
helmets,
yeah.
and we read
Guardian?
this,
Are they Guardian helmets?
Yes.
Yes, Guardian
Where
helmets.
you put it on top of your regular football helmet. Every player at MIT football, which obviously is not major football, but it's football nevertheless, is required to wear it, which is great, until Marjorie and I read a subsequent story which says that other than the NFL, which you surely cannot trust on these things, there is no independent study that suggests that the Guardian helmet provides any extra protection for the players from repetitive head injuries. I mean, what's the deal?
I mean, I think part of it is, right, that you need to the only way you can probably really tell is over long-term real stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a researcher.
No, I think you're right.
I will say that the article that your website, that gbh.com put out there, did talk to the MIT head coach. So what happened at MIT is that these Guardian helmets were introduced, and you've probably seen them on. There are players on the Patriots who wear them. They look sort of like spaceship. They kind of look like the little alien from the Flintstones. Like on top of their heads. Remember that little alien from the Flintstones?
I do, actually.
And it looks like it's like padded on top. It's supposed to offer extra protection against concussions. And MIT, some players wore them, just by choice. Then the coach mandated that they be worn in practice. And then he finally said, if we're mandating them in practice, we're going to wear them in games, every single one of us.
By the way, which I support. Until there's 100%. Evidence that they don't help, they should do it. I agree.
And he has said that it's anecdotal, but that they feel like they have had fewer head injuries, traumatic brain injuries, while the players have worn these helmets since they've started wearing them, practice and games. But again, that's anecdotal evidence. There is not long-term evidence to show that these Guardian helmets make any sort of major difference, which is probably why an excuse that I'm sure some players, what they use, like, why would I wear this extra layer of protection if I don't even know if it's going to do anything? I did think it was interesting. One of the players interviewed said that one of the things that they missed the most about just wearing regular helmets was the pop of the helmet. So when you tackle somebody, and he acknowledged when he said it, he goes, and I know what that means. If you hear the pop of the helmet, that's probably not what we should be hearing. It's not how we should tackle. It's probably what's causing these traumatic brain injuries. But there's that flavor, that you hear and see in football. I mean, if you've ever been to a football game or been close or on the sidelines, and they run into each other, it's like a fastball hitting a glove. Like, you can hear it. There's something to it. But that's not a reason not to. But I think the bigger issue is that we don't really know what the long-term effects are.
Let's stay with the NFL for 1 second. The NFL says they have research. Again, I don't trust them about anything that has to do with safety. But they say we have research that shows it does help. So if you were questioning Roger Goodell, right, he's the commissioner right now? Right now, and say your own research says it helps. If it makes them safer, why is it not mandatory?
My guess is because, unlike college, and I know college players are adults as well, but it's a different level. You're a professional player. That's like my employer mandating me to, I don't know, have.
Okay, well, I'm a lineman to the
Patriots.
I don't want to wear a helmet at all. So I feel freer.
Well, that's obviously not allowed. But,
but why?
I suppose that's a good counter argument, attorney.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was not a very good attorney.
I did not go to law school, and Jim just got me there.
I barely went to law school.
I don't know, Jim. I'll be honest. I don't know why they don't mandate. It certainly might cut down on lawsuits and litigation that they face when these guys are done. But they don't. They allow these guys to make their own uniform choices, which, to your point, is interesting because, guys can't add their own flair to their uniforms. They have to wear the same pants. They have to wear the same socks. They have to wear certain kind of cleats. They're not allowed to. Somebody can't wear a Reebok jersey and somebody else wears a Nike jersey. Like, everyone has to have something uniform.
That they'll mandate, but they won't mandate a helmet that might protect
uniforms.
Uniform. Oh, I like that.
I would guess, Jim, in large part, it's because it would take something away. Like, those Guardian helmets, I don't know how many of you watched because it was on Amazon Prime, I don't know how many of you watched the Patriots Thursday night game, but they had these really cool, everyone's raising their hands, these really cool snow white helmets. And though you can sell those in the pro shop. And people can they can get them signed and they can put them up on display and they probably cost $250 or something. So everything, again, it comes back to our first story, everything comes back to money. I don't know how you market a Guardian helmet.
We're talking to Trenni Casey.
So let's play a little sound from the granddaughter of the President of the United States. This would be Kayyem Trump. Apparently she's a pretty good golfer.
She's okay.
She's okay. Here's sound of a video she posted to social media. We don't know if she posted, but it's posted to social media of her, Kayyem Trump, golfing on the putting green of the White House South Lawn.
I'm on the lawn right now, and I'm about to chip some balls onto the green right over here. So let's go. Not many people get to do this, so I'm pretty lucky. Trump did a little off the White House lawn.
Okay, so
see you guys on the next one.
So Kai's got a big following because she sells apparel, and she's a pretty good golfer.
Wait, with the White House as a background.
Yeah.
She sells the stuff.
That's right.
From the White House grounds.
Well, she said she's lucky. She realizes that she's pretty lucky.
Okay.
I believe there's some sort of ethical entanglement there.
Not
but-
anymore. There used to be, but
well,
not anymore.
The uncles have taken, or her father have taken all that away. I mean, we're beyond ethics at this point. But anyway, should I be outraged that she played in this Pro-Am golf tournament, the Annika, even though she would not really have qualified because she's good, but not that good?
I'm so glad. I actually read this story, and I meant to send it. Maybe I did send it to you guys as a possibility.
Whatever, it's here.
Whatever, it's here. And so I went to the golf simulator with my husband and another couple we're friends with on Sunday to play a little skins game.
Of course.
And I brought this up.
Where's
while we were golfing.
Where's the golf simulator?
Oh, it's great. It's called 5-Iron. There's 2 locations. There's one at Government Center, and then there's one over in the 4 Point area. But it's great.
I bet that's
fun.
fun.
If you're a golfer and you can't golf all winter long because we live in the Northeast, you go and there's no elements, right? But you can. For me, I can work on my swing and stuff.
Okay,
it's great.
go ahead.
We love it. Anyway. So we talked about it, and I brought this up because I had read this column. So the point of the column is that the LPGA, unlike other women's sports leagues, have sort of not captured the attention of the nation. They haven't made a big leap like other sports leagues have, female sports leagues have. And the columnist, who wasn't a man, by the way, felt this was sort of a cheap way to do it. That Kai Trump is not good enough to have ever. Didn't even make the cut. I think she only played Thursday, Friday.
She came in last.
She came in last. She's not great. She's not even great at her college level. But because of her social media following, because of her last name, they gave her this sponsor exemption. So I'm talking about this with everybody while we're golfing, and my friend's husband, Brendan. To his credit, he's a little argumentative, but it did make me think differently about it. Sponsor exemptions do happen all the time. Like Tony Romo got a sponsor exemption not long ago to a pretty big tournament. And even though he's not a great golfer and he never would have made the cut, he never would have been invited otherwise, they gave it to him because it's a sponsor. So it's not even the tournament that's giving it to her. It's a corporate sponsor who says, I've paid enough money to be a sponsor of this tournament, so I get a certain number of entries. I choose to give it to Kai Trump. That's pretty standard in golf.
Well, the marathon finish line is here. If you're part of a charity that's exciting and you don't qualify, you can run.
Exactly.
9-minute milers, 10-minute milers.
It's going to be shocked that I'm going to support a Trump person. But if the league is suffering and her star power is going to help, it's one position. And of course it's true. That means one other golfer who would have qualified does not.
Also, but that golfer
help.
would have had to have a sponsor who felt like they would elevate the tournament. Like if you're a sponsor of something, you want. At first I wasn't, because I was like, at first when I read it.
I wasn't either.
Because when I read the column, I was like, oh, that's a good point. Like why don't they do other things? Why are we resorting to this? But honestly, all leagues, like my argument was, Caitlin Clark has elevated the WNBA because she's such a tremendous athlete. Like she hasn't done it just because she's this average basketball player who has a big social media following. But that doesn't,
But they're great women's golfers who haven't elevated the LPGA.
I would love Nelly Korda.
Can you name, other than Annika Sorenstam, can you name?
Nelly Korda.
That's two.
Nelly Korda is like the best female golfer right now. But I'll be honest, Jim, I don't know that I can name another.
Well, I have hope for Kai because her mom, after getting divorced from her dad, Don Jr., is dating Tiger Woods.
He is?
So
he
if
is?
you wanted to get advice on how to become a great golfer.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I would ask. I really love it because it must really bother Don Jr.
Wait a second. Who's Don Jr.'s former
ex-wife?
I thought he was. What happened to the one who's with?
Oh, she got sent off
to Greece.
Sent off to Greece.
Who used to be with Newsom?
Yeah, she's gone.
What's her name?
Sent her out of the country to get him out of that one. And he's looking for other women, I suppose, at the moment. But I love the fact that
the tangled webs. Those
well,
Trumps
because Tiger Woods is a great athlete. He's got a checkered past, as we know, but he's a great athlete.
His son is actually
Charlie.
Charlie
adorable.
is a pretty good golfer.
He is adorable.
He actually, I believe he made. I think he's in college now. He's at least a junior golfer. He was a first team all junior. So he is a legitimately good golfer, Charlie Woods is.
Well, we're hoping that Tiger gives a few tips to Kai.
Not quite. He wasn't junior player of the year like Tiger was a couple of times, but he's good enough that he's getting some recognition early.
Okay, before
and
you
not just
go-
because of his name, but because of how well he golfs.
Good.
So I was joking with John King before. Is he going to go to the Super Bowl where my Eagles play the Patriots, his team, his home team?
Wow, we're putting the Patriots in the Super Bowl already,
If the
huh?
Patriots make it to the Super Bowl, and right now I think they're the top-ranked team.
They're not. The Denver Broncos are number one in the
Haven't
AFC.
they had
so
a really
number two,
easy schedule,
if they
though?
ma-
Isn't that
They
the
have.
wrap?
No, but they beat two really good teams.
Okay.
The Bills and the Tampa Bay.
Buccaneers, yep.
So if they make it to the Super Bowl, is that the single greatest turnaround in the history of pro football?
I mean,
They've
it's-
won 4 games 2 years in a row.
Well, I'm trying to remember what was the record of the 2000 Patriots
Before they won the Super
before they
Bowl
won the
in
Super Bowl
01.
in 2001.
Well, that's
I
why
don't know.
Jamie's there. Jamie, what
I
was
can't
the
remember.
record?
They were undefeated the year they lost the Super Bowl.
Well, that was
We all
2007.
remember that.
That was 2007. They were undefeated, but they weren't. They in the first year of Bill Belichick, they were not very good. What would make this unique is that Mike Vrabel is a first-year head coach. Like Bill Belichick came in 2000. I think they were under 500. I want to say they were like, this is back when I want
Jamie's
to say they
on
were
it.
like 6-10 maybe in
No,
2000.
he's not. He doesn't care.
We
he
don't
doesn't care
know.
about this
We
at
don't
all.
know. We don't know.
Thanks a lot, Jamie.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
All we know
what
is
kind
that
of research
Tom
department are you?
Brady cloned his dog.
Do you know what the name of the quarterback for the Patriots is, Marjorie? What's the name of the
Drake May.
Okay. There. We have an answer.
we have
to
an
this.
answer.
He says, sadly, I have too many streaming services to keep up with this. Jamie says. So let me ask you a question.
You didn't think I knew who the quarterback of the Patriots was?
No,
That'd
I
be
didn't
pretty
know.
bad.
Well, it's great you did. Now,
I'm
let me
glad
ask
he's
you
having
something.
a good year because he was not having a good year
Now,
last year.
when we have our staff
It's
meeting,
okay. It was they didn't lose because of Drake May. He was only a rookie
was
last
a
year, and
rookie
he didn't
last
have
year. Okay.
he did not have a great team around him,
He did
and
not.
it was sort of chaos behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we have our 8:50 staff meeting tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Are you going to bring up the same story that we finally discussed with her?
What
Did you bring
streaming
up?
services do you subscribe to?
Oh, I'd love to hear this.
I have Prime
Shit.
Video.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have Netflix.
Netflix. Okay,
me
I have
too.
HBO Max.
Whoa.
So wait, but you
I
have
think
cable,
that's it.
right?
I have cable
so
as
you
well.
get HBO Max with cable.
Okay.
I hope you're not paying extra for it because you
She
should.
probably is.
Yeah, I don't know if I am paying. I have
I don't know who-
Comcast.
no.
Yeah, you should just get HBO Max.
HBO Max.
with it.
I have no idea. Finances is not my area of expertise.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. I'd really disabused
So wait,
me.
does that mean
kinda-
you need to borrow, like I do, you need to borrow someone's Disney Plus so you can watch the Taylor Swift documentary?
That's right. I don't have Disney Plus. But I have a wonderful woman because I'm so disorganized who has helped me pay my bills for like the last 30 years. It's been great.
If I can say
This
one
is a
thing.
service?
It's a service, yeah. I'm a very disorganized person.
Now-
Jim can attest to
Now,
that.
let me just say before you leave, because I haven't told the story in about 10 years. A bunch of years ago, Marjorie decided, which I thought was a great move, and I counseled her in favor. She asked my
Yeah.
opinion. She decided she's going to spend a little extra money in the early days of HD TV and buy an HD TV. Now, and which I thought was a great move, and I supported. So when her friend goes to her house to help her install the HD TV,
Yeah.
and she is saying how excited she is to have an HD TV, as he's taking out the old TV, he turns to her and says, Marjorie, this is an HD TV. Is that a true story?
I already had one.
Okay.
I didn't know.
There you go. I think that's all you need to know.
Yeah, it's a sad state of
It's
affairs.
a very sad story.
Sad state of
Trenni,
affairs.
it's great to see you. Trenni Casey,
guys.
thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Trenni Casey. Trenni Casey is anchor reporter for NBC Sports
See you
Boston
soon.
and BPR contributor. Oh, thank you, Carrie.
Whoever
Trenni.
she is, Trenni.
I said Carrie. Why did I
Well,
say that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Coming up after this quick break, to rent or to buy, we are not talking about
It's a good
housing
one.
for a change, but the little things. Books and clothes. Do you go to the library or do you actually buy books? Do you rent clothes, go to these rental services rather than buying new things, hoarding things in your house just to say they're yours? How do you feel about the rent versus buys option in your life? I'm Marjorie Egan, he's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The U.S. needs more truck drivers. Could updates to trucks, like cameras and driver assist technology, make long hauls more comfortable and keep drivers around for longer?
I would say that this truck's easier to drive than most cars nowadays.
I'm Scott Tetro. We lift up the hood on the future of trucking on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, presenting Verdi's Requiem with Eileen Perez, Daniela Mack, John Osborne, and Muharrem Huzyunov, November 23rd at 3 at Symphony Hall. More at bostonphil.org. And Silligrams, a Boston-area manufacturer working with businesses to create custom silicone products for corporate gifts and branded merchandise. Learn about their monogrammed ice trays and more online at silligrams.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. 11:30 tomorrow. I'm sure you know this by now. Yo-Yo Ma will join us. And Thursday, Jonathan Ben Ness, who is fabulous, is going to join us too. Before we get to a fairly light topic, can I just say one thing?
Yes, Jim.
I know this is a hype. Is there any elected official in the history of the United States of America who could be asked the question about Mohammed bin Salman executing Jamal Khashoggi and then having him dismembered?
Yeah, chopped
and that
up.
leader would say,
chopped
quote,
up and put in a suitcase.
the leader would say, quote, things happen
I know,
and survive.
I know.
That
Well.
That's what Donald Trump said in that meeting. Things happen. In any case, anyone who's ever used Rent the Runway is familiar with the process of renting nice clothing and returning it after the event. But nowadays, more and more people are turning to rental options for everyday wear, citing environmental, financial, and closet space issues. So for the rest of the show, we're opening the lines to get your thoughts on rentals. Sort of the same principle as a library book. Some people love the option to read and return. Others love to own what they read and display books in their homes as totems to their intelligence, even though in all likelihood they will never read the book again. Now, the benefit of renting clothes, I would assume, is the significant reduction in time spent doing laundry, freeing up space in your house, and saving money. So our questions, there's a third option before we go, which is one that at least one family member of mine is engaged in, buying stuff on Amazon and returning it once you're done using it, which is borderline weird, but it's really easy. So the three questions are to buy, to rent, or to buy and return. What's your method and why? Give us a call at 877-301-8970. You ever rented anything?
A million years ago, when I was young, I rented speakers for a party when people used to get
Those
big
huge
speakers. Yeah, one of those rent-a-center places.
Wow, that's
you
pretty
know?
good.
Yeah, and the big speakers were there, and we had a great party. You could rent a lot of things. You could rent couches and stuff like that. They charge you a lot of money, and then if you didn't return them on time, they charge you these late fees. But yes, I did. Have you ever rented anything?
Well, I the analogy I made a minute ago, you're not quite renting it, but borrowing a book from the library. 9 times out of 10.
I've done that. I've done that.
Well, I used to when I was younger. But right now, if someone said to me, all you got to do is go over there and get the book, or you can go to the bookstore and buy it at great expense as opposed to zero, will you ever read the book again if you buy it? No, I'll read it once. And never. I don't think I've ever read a book twice. Maybe there are 1 or 2 that I have. I would always buy the book. And I don't know why. I mean, it isn't, again, I don't display them so that people can see, oh my God, he actually knows how to read, or because I like the look of having books.
What do you do with them?
Generally, they're in a box or a pile or something. But for some perverse reason, even though I can be frugal, as you know, I do that. So I don't know. So why do I not rent? I mean, for example, I had to wear decent clothes. Some people would disagree. Every night that I was on television. Why did I buy that stuff instead of just renting the stuff and then return it the next day or the next week? What's the answer to that?
Because you expensed it.
I forgot about that. Okay, let's move on. 877-301-8970 to rent, to buy and return, or to just outright buy. Are you primarily a buyer, aren't you?
I'm a buyer. Somebody just texted, though, they're talking about their kids. It used to be years ago, if you got your clothing at Goodwill, that was kind of like you're supposed to sneak in, and it was not a matter of pride. But this texter said that their I think it said a teenage daughter is buying at Goodwill. And there's that great place over in Cambridge that everybody goes to.
Oh, on Broadway.
Yeah, on Broadway.
Where you can you pay by the pound.
Yes.
I can't remember the
So
name.
I think a lot of young people go, and there's this whole thing about we're not supposed to do fast fashion anymore. The cheaply
What's
made
fast
stuff.
fashion?
Fast fashion is stuff that polyester type stuff
Oh.
that you get at a place like H&M
it's gonna fall
or
apart.
Zara or something. Well, it's supposed to be exploitative of the environment. Although one of these stories says it really doesn't really make that much difference. Renting is not necessarily more positive for the environment than buying. But anyway, I think, yeah, and I know a lot of people in their 20s and 30s. They do those clothing exchanges. One of our good friends, Jessica,
I know.
she does a clothing exchange every year, and everybody goes together and they get the clothing exchange, and so they're not spending money, but they're wearing each other's clothes.
By the way, Jamie writes, Jim, you don't display the books. You pile them up in Studio 3, cover them with other trash, used chopsticks, and old soy
Well, that's
sauce.
true. That's true.
That
I have
is
a
what we
pile
do
of
have.
books. If I try to keep mine neater than Jim's pile of books. But you know, with the books, it depends on what the book is. If it's a novel or something that you're probably just going to read to enjoy, or some mystery or
You
something.
get it at the library? I don't think
get
so.
It at the,
when was the
yeah,
last time you took a book out of a library?
I would say about 6 months ago.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great,
Well, it's
actually.
not
That's
that big of a
great.
deal because I'm overwhelmed by books. But if it's something that I want to really take notes on, I tend to write a lot in books.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you have to buy it yourself.
877-301-8970.
But my sister, man, she's famous.
She reads like a book a week, right?
She's famous at the Centerville Library. She gets books there all the time. She's on the list. The book comes in, you put your name on the list, and when the book, you have to wait sometimes to get the book, but she gets books there all the time. And librarians are great. I love to talk to librarians too. They can give you suggestions.
We're in
and
a
stuff
library.
like that.
You're aware of that, right?
We are in a library
Okay,
right
fine.
here. That's right.
Can I say
Boston
two more
Public Library.
things? Is the return, the buy and return, even though there is an ethic to it, which we should talk about.
No, there isn't much of an ethic.
Amazon has made it so you can walk into Whole Foods, you can basically
I know that. Yep.
throw the product to someone behind the
And they'll
counter.
take it.
They don't need a box. They don't
But-
need a receipt. They don't need nothing.
But this story says that a lot of people feel it's okay to cheat on returning things. Almost half of shoppers, 45%, said it's acceptable to bend the rules when returning items. In other words, they wear the item out and then they return it. Or they use the item, which is even
They
worse
think
than
that's
they return
unfair. It's really unfair to Jeff Bezos. I would agree. Now he's having such a hard time.
It's kind of
He's
cheating.
making 16. He knows what's going on, and he's not upset about it. Why are you upset about it?
Because it's kind of dishonest, Jim, to
No, it's not.
claim. It's not.
It's not.
Okay.
Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Okay.
It's a little
Okay.
unconventional.
And
let's
Costco,
say.
did you know, we talked a lot about Costco because they've been standing up to Donald Trump on DEI stuff and like
Yeah.
that. I guess they have this return policy that you can return stuff like
forever.
Yeah,
Used
some
to be
people
like LL
return.
Bean. Remember LL Bean a couple years ago?
Okay, one person returned a broken couch 4 years after
Well, we don't
buying
know
it.
if that's true.
I'm reading this
I
from
know, I read that too.
fastcompany.com.
Whoever they are.
Another brought back, listen to this one, a half-eaten chicken bake. Now that's really pushing the envelope.
Now, do you
to
believe
bring-
that or
I
not?
do. They were refunded in full, and somebody else brought back their dried-up Christmas tree in January.
Do you know that
And this story claims that Costco took it. I assume that they're telling the truth. I could be wrong.
So do you know, and then we'll get to your calls, I
Mhm.
promise. Do you know that LL Bean, until they changed the rules about a year and a half ago, you could buy a backpack, for
Yeah,
example.
people took
Use
advantage.
it for, that was their policy.
Yeah.
You could buy a backpack, use it for 20 years, and it wasn't unethical. That's what their system was.
Right.
And if you chose to return it, they would take
But
it.
it's one thing if the zipper broke or one of the straps broke, but if you returned a backpack
But if it's
that was-
okay with them, what do you care?
Because you want to be reasonable about these things, Jim. If it's covered with whatever that your kid has used for 20 years, I don't think you should return it that
You're
way.
really
But
amazing. You're a
I'm
very
not,
ethical person.
I'm not an ethical person. I'm very unethical,
Let's
actually.
go. You are the least
Violet in
unethical I've
Jamaica-
ever known in my life.
Violet in Jamaica Plain. Thank
Hi,
you
Violet.
for calling.
Hi. Love that name. Hi.
Hi, I
Hi.
just wanted to say I am not opposed to renting cars, and I love this new app that's online, Flex Car, I think it is.
Yes.
Where you can rent a new car every month. And renting tools. I don't know if you can rent tools from Home Depot anymore, but at one time you could rent tools.
You can rent power washers because I've done it.
No, you can totally do
Yeah.
that. And in
Yeah.
fact, there's one in Somerville about 10 blocks from my house. That's an interesting thing, Violet.
Tools.
I have no problem with the
Yeah.
concept of renting a tool, but why is it that other things, like a book or a pair of pants, I wouldn't want to rent? Can you explain that, Violet?
Well, I'll say my kids buy from an app called Depop. They buy, they wear it, and then they resell it. So I think the new generation, they're okay with that. For me, I'm with you, Jim. I'm not, I feel like it's I don't want to wear pants that somebody else has worn.
That's
and
what it is.
Gotten dirty and all that. Just the sanitary part of it for me.
By the way,
But
that is
nowadays.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, that was it.
That is exactly what it is, and it's obvious. I hadn't thought of it. That was great, Violet.
Although,
thanks for the call.
Rent a Runway, if it's like your kid's wedding or it's a fancy event that you're going to go to and you're supposed to wear a really fancy dress and you're probably never going to wear it again, I can see why people do that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Do you hear Violet mention something called Flex Car?
Yeah.
We can get like a new one and you keep doing it. That was merged with something called Zip Car.
Zip Car.
And Zip Car was founded by two women in my kids' elementary school. And when one of the women, I've told you the story, walked up to me one day and said, Jim, you seem to have a business sense, which I do not at all. She describes the concept to me that you can rent a car for an hour or a day or whatever. And she said, do you think it'll work? And I said, of course, it never will.
Yeah, never will. She made millions.
She made millions, yeah. She made millions.
I think a Zip Car is a great idea.
Zip Car is great.
Oh, it's a great idea, especially if you live in the city, because the cars are so expensive.
So why don't you rent a car rather than own your car?
I want my own car.
Why?
Because I spend a lot of time in my car, driving the car.
In other words, you have no idea
sleeping
why.
in the car. I would never buy a used car. I would never buy a new car because you lose money on a new car. But I've only bought one new car. It was the same one that you bought years
Highlanders.
ago.
We both
the
had a
Toyota
sponsor.
Highlander. Yeah, the moment you drive it off the lot, it's gone down. But I like a used car. People making fun of me with the pressure washer. I did use...
No. They make fun of you because a plant fell off the Lennox and dented the hood of your car.
That's right.
7 years ago?
7 years ago.
You got it fixed?
No, I have not.
Okay, Josh in Waltham, you
But
are
I don't
next.
care that much about cars.
Apparently not.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have a ridiculously colored car. The car I bought...
love the color.
It's a
bright
bright
blue.
It's a bright blue. It's a bright blue. It's like the color of this pencil. It's a bright blue. You can find it in the parking lot everywhere you go. But the reason I got it for a cheap price is because the guy who bought it new returned it after 1,000 miles because he was ridiculed because of the color of the car.
Didn't stop you.
So I got a 1,000-mile used car. I thought that was a great deal.
So we're talking about buying and returning, or renting, which is your option of choice. What are you going to say?
See the texter?
No.
I rented some chapstick. Now I have mouth sores. May have been a poor decision.
Well, that's a joke, but that's a variation of what Violet said. If you could rent a really nice outfit for an event, but you realize that somebody else wore it, obviously they clean it in between, would you want to wear something that somebody else wore?
Well, it depends. If it was like a fancy dress you're wearing for one event, I might think that was okay.
Think so.
Another texter says, as a college student who has to save money, getting back to streaming, I love renting DVDs from the library and watching on my Magnavox DVD player. I thrifted from Goodwill. A lot of my friends are film buffs, and it's a great way to watch all the movies I've never seen. I know a lot of people that do that. They rented DVDs from the library.
Marion Newton, welcome. Hi.
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 I would like to say that I personally haven't rented clothes for myself, but I have found it to be a really good gift-giving venue for my daughters-in-law.
What do you mean? You give them a gift card or something?
You give them a gift certificate to the site, and my daughter-in-law just recently had her second baby, and she was being given an award, and she needed to have a nice outfit, and it was clearly not things she was ever going to use again. And the clothes arrive, and they're beautiful, and they're clean, and they send them back, and it works out really well.
That's a fabulous gift.
Maternity
That's
clothes
a fabulous
are
gift.
another
Mary,
thing.
thanks.
Maternity clothes. I mean, you're probably not going to have 10 children, so you rent the maternity clothes and you give them back at the end of the whole thing.
Can you rent maternity clothes?
You can rent everything. You can rent all kind. Yeah, you can rent all sorts of different clothes.
What was the power
Another
washer?
anonymous texter says I rent Dickies.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
What was the power washer thing you were referencing a minute ago?
I was trying to power wash the porch.
You were?
And the side of the house.
You were?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It didn't go that well.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful.
Did you rent one?
Power washer can get those shingles right off. You know what I mean? You got to be really careful with the power washer. Bernice in Watertown, thank you very much for calling.
Hello, Bernice. How are you?
Hi, Jim and Margie.
Hey.
So I have a theory on why you like to buy books, Jim, rather than go to the library.
Please.
Because I used to have that.
Okay.
I think that when you go buy a bright, shiny new book like at Barnes & Noble, you do a lot of searching, and then you find something that appeals to you, and it's very sexual.
It is?
Yeah, you capture that book. It's yours. You march it to the counter. You pay for it, and by golly, you own it now.
Wow.
Whereas when you go to the library,
Yeah.
you know, it's old and scuffed, and you look around for a while, and yeah, maybe you'll find a couple things that really appeal to you, but they're not bright and shiny and new, and they certainly don't belong to you.
So if I can summarize, that is brilliant, by the way. So you're basically saying if somebody needs a sexual experience, they should go buy a book. Is that what you're saying?
No, she's saying that's you.
Only if you're a person who gets off on books like
Yikes.
you and I both are.
Okay. Bernice, that was a spectacular call.
Wow.
I think it's a good time to terminate it,
Would
if you
you
know
li-
what I mean.
Would you like to discuss
Bernice, I love
the
that.
sexual thrill of buying
Well,
books, Jim?
I don't know if I'd call it sexual, but the way she described it is actually what the experience is like, isn't it?
Really?
When you go to bookstores, you love going to bookstores.
I do. I love bookstores.
Yeah.
Brookline Booksmith. I'm there all the time.
And I don't want to give secrets away,
Yep.
but Marjorie called me after she went to a bookstore recently in Brookline, and she said, I really need a cigarette. That's what you said. You remember?
No, I don't. I don't remember that. But
Maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was Bernice,
yeah,
actually.
I think Bernice had you pegged, Jim. She must have seen you at the Harvard Coop or whatever you
No,
call it.
but can we get
over
back
there.
to this for a second? Even
Yeah.
if it isn't sex, would you agree the bookstore, which is coming
Bookstore's
back,
great.
by the way.
I love bookstores.
Brick and mortar bookstores are spectacular places to spend your time.
Yeah,
Are they not?
well, you can sit there and you can read the books and make sure that it's a book you want to buy, and you have to kind of control yourself because you can end up buying 3 or 4 books. You don't want to do that. You want to read what. That's my rule. I can't buy another book until I finish the first book, read the first book, and I'm a really slow reader. So
By the way, Bernice is going to be at Brookline Booksmith at 3 o'clock this afternoon. If
Bernice
you're
has to
interested.
control herself.
But that was a beautiful call.
It was a beautiful call.
You were a little embarrassed, but
Well,
it was a
I
beautiful
know I
call.
hadn't thought about book buying as a sexual kind of thing, but who knows? A new frontier has been
I
opened
love
up.
that call.
Heather and Peabody, what do you think, Heather?
Hey, Heather. Hello.
Hi. So I actually haven't bought new clothes in a long time, except like underpants. I'm not going to buy those used.
Yeah, you
but
can't buy those used.
No.
Oh, you remember the story about Hillary
Clinton?
Donated the used underwear. That was
To
pretty
get
bad.
a tax deduction.
To get a tax deduction. That
I'm
was
sorry.
really
Go
bad.
ahead, Heather.
Hey, if I got money back, I would wear your underpants. But
Oh, my God.
I've been
2
using
calls
Rent the
like
Runway.
this. Go ahead.
I've been using Rent the Runway for years, and then on top of that, I use Poshmark, which is an online wholesale kind of thing where people consign it.
So,
and I haven't paid full price for anything. And the thing for Poshmark, just for people out there, a lot of the shoes and stuff I get have never been worn.
Wow.
So it's new with tags, but a quarter of the price. And it's just great.
So can you go back for the things that are worn? Violet nailed it in terms of my concern. If you know that something is not brand new and you're wearing it on your body, shoes not much of an issue for me, but on your body, does that trouble you, or you're okay with that?
Oh, God, no. I mean, it's clean. Nothing's coming from like a dirt bin or anything. And I think people got real issues if that's their excuse for not, being good to the priority when discussing my fashion.
That's great. I love that. Heather, that's a fabulous call, too. Thank you for
Is
making
it spelled Poshmark? Is it Posh?
SH, I think
That's
it
what I
is,
thought
yeah.
it is. Yeah, I know a lot of people that do that, who do that too. Here's a texter, Jim, Chloe from Southbridge. Jim, you do realize you are at the library. How is getting a book from the library that much of a hardship for you?
It isn't a hardship.
Besides, you get the book and read it from the library, and if you really like it, then you buy it from a local bookstore like a normal person. That's your advice to you.
That's actually very sound advice.
Oh, and another texter wants to know, Jim, where did you buy the black and gray plaid blazer you used to wear on your nightly TV show? Did you borrow it from Shecky Green?
Oh, that's so funny. Shecky Green was a Catskills comedian from like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. When I
Jim
was
had his lapels turned up like the Flying Nun.
Yeah,
that
that's
was very funny.
Yeah,
Why don't you iron the lapels?
Okay, Marjorie had a very good friend who would watch my television show.
That's right.
And he would call her during the show. This is a true story. Never once commented on the content of what I was doing, the brilliant questioning, the fabulous guests. Why would he call you?
Because he was an impeccably dressed, born in Italy guy who always looked spectacular. He was criticizing your clothes.
Every night.
Every night.
Every night.
Yeah, every night.
Sad.
Yeah, he was best dressed in Boston like many, many years ago.
By the way, anonymous texter says, Jim, just grab your Q-tips and head to the bookstore. Right? Exactly. He's referring to Bernice. And for new listeners to the show, this is long overdue. We have done legendary segments on the, how do I put it this way? The satisfaction one gets from Q-tips. In fact, a listener coined the phrase, which I had not heard before, eargasm. Do you remember that?
Yeah, what you have to do is take the Q-tips and go to a bookstore, Jim.
That's what the anonymous texter said.
I think you'd be all set.
With bamboo, I like the bamboo stems, too.
Yeah, you've made that clear. Somebody else says that you should not be worried about renting clothes and wearing another pair of pants that somebody else has.
Good, yeah.
Because you try on clothes at the clothing store many times, and who knows how many people and what sort of people have tried those clothes on. That's actually a very good point. You know, you're always supposed to keep your underwear on when you try bathing suits on, but I always wonder how many people break that rule.
What I generally do, which I don't want to mention on the air, but since you brought it up, is rather than do that, I often send Jamie to try on the clothes before I buy them. And then if he says they look good, I'll do it. Jennifer in Mansfield, we're talking about buying and returning, or renting. What's your modus operandi? Hello there.
Hi there. I just wanted to say that I was at a college tour yesterday in Bridgewater State with my daughter.
Yep.
And when we walked back kind of the career support center, they mentioned that they maintain kind of like a borrow wardrobe for students who may be heading out on job interviews. And then they added that it's not just for students, it's for alumni as well. And then if you go out and you decide you want to keep that suit, you keep that suit.
That, by the way, let me say two things. One, Bridgewater State is great. I actually know a decent amount about it. It's a great place. And number two, when you hear all the stories about how many kids go to college and can barely afford tuition, can't afford adequate nutrition, that is a spectacular service to provide. That is a great story. And I hope that a lot of higher education places are doing that. Jennifer, thanks for sharing the story. Good luck with your kid. We appreciate it.
Liz Price out of Cambridge and now living in Worcester says that we shouldn't say we're renting something from the library. I guess we should say we're borrowing it from the library.
Yeah, but it's a similar concept.
I didn't rent my neighbor's snow shovel, and I didn't rent a book from the library, says Liz Price out of Cambridge.
That's true. But renting, borrowing, same sort of concept. But it is interesting, as I said before, and you didn't comment on this, I have no problem renting a tool. And what's the difference?
Because I think tools are made out of metal and you're using them with your hands. You're not like putting them on your body. It's different.
It is?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, would you feel funny renting speakers, when you were young and when people had big speakers? No, you wouldn't feel.
I wouldn't.
Yes, it depends on the tool.
Aiden just made a good point. Depends on the tool.
Depends on the tool.
Show is really...
Josh from Waltham. What do you think, Josh?
Didn't we talk to Josh? Hello, Josh.
Did we talk to Josh already?
Hello. No, you skipped me, Jane.
This is one of my favorite callers. I love Josh.
Hi, Josh.
How are you, Josh? What's your problem?
Hello. Well, I'm doing great, but I forget what I called in about.
Perfect. We forgot about you. You forgot about us. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's mutual. The feeling's mutual.
Thank you.
First of all, Bernice sounds like a great time. Love her.
Absolutely.
Also, in terms of tool rental, I have rented a tool at Home Depot before because, as I mentioned in a prior call, I'm a part-time landscaper. And I've never felt so masculine using that jackhammer thing. It was great. And the client paid for the rental. But I did feel a little attacked, or I thought you were talking about me when the caller said, renting a tool. I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah. How do you feel about tool belts? Josh?
Well, tool belts? I don't know. They're fine. I don't know. But I did want to mention, I remember my original point.
Oh, good. It's about time. Go.
There's on Facebook, there's local buy nothing pages.
Yes.
That's great for, getting something, and then you can always re-gift it, or, if you're in a city like I'm in Waltham, you can just put stuff on the curb, and it's great. And just going back to the whole clutter thing, if I may.
Oh, sure.
And Marjorie, you talk about your bills and whatnot. I've always forgotten to mention that the name, I'm going to do a shameless plug for my Josh of all trades. I do landscaping and home organizing.
Oh, really?
Give me a buzz.
Oh, thank you, Josh.
I would love to work with you. Jim, I would prefer to, if he hired me, I would just do my own thing. But I would work with you, Marjorie. That would be
Thank you very much, Josh. It's a lovely offer.
That is a fabulous offer. Josh, stay on hold. I'm going to take your phone number. And I'm going to connect you to Marjorie and see what we can do here.
Now,
Josh, thank you for the call.
A
Don't
couple
go
more
away.
quick texts. After Bernice called, this texter understands why Jim gets so mad when you cannot broadcast from the library.
Oh, that's a good one. Thank you very much.
And David from Parter Square Books in Cambridge, Jim, says that as the owner of a local bookstore, I'll say, while people often assume we see the library as competition, we and almost every other independent bookstore love the library. We work closely with them. Amazon is the competition, not the library.
Parter Square
Excellent
Books
point.
in North Cambridge is spectacular.
Okay.
Okay,
Jared's on
with
Zoom.
us. Jared, do you ever rent, no, not a chance. Do you ever rent an article of clothing? Zero chance, right?
Never, no.
Never.
Maybe when I was in high school for the prom, I rented my tux.
Oh, we all rent
You had to rent tuxes for the prom.
Yeah.
Jim had a light blue one with ruffles.
No, I did not.
That's nice.
Harriet Heinemann.
I didn't take her to the prom.
shot put
I
her
took
outfit.
Sherry Leslie Siegel to the prom, by the way.
You need to look her up.
Oh, my
Sherry
God.
Leslie
Was
Siegel.
Harriet
She's in
really
Paris.
upset?
Harriet was
No, she
devastated.
was not upset. She was not. Let's move on.
I bet she's photoshopped her next to your ruffled tuxedo, and that's hanging in her house right
That's
now,
right.
right next to her shot put.
Okay.
Her athletic award prize winning
Okay,
shot
fine.
put. Okay, fine.
Let me tell you, she's going to get a lawyer and sue the hell out of the show. She's still around.
I think she's changed her name.
Okay,
hasn't
fine.
She? Isn't that why we can't
I
find
have
her?
no idea. So,
Okay.
what's on your what's on the show there?
So the show Kim's Convenience.
Yes.
Speaking of shows, it was a very, very popular.
Someone applauded
I
for
know.
that
I
just
just
now.
heard that. That's
There's
exciting.
only one person there, so go ahead.
Well, a very, very popular television
Two
show.
people.
Which was a stage show, which has become a stage show yet again at the Huntington Theater. So Inns Choi, the playwright and now star of the show, joins us. The artist Dred Scott will join us. He is being very mindful of what's happening with our government right now and its impact across all sectors. He's seen what the arts can do to address this moment. He and Ava DuVernay and others. So he will talk about Fall of Freedom, an initiative coming up where artists can take a stance against what's happening. And then Pedro Alonso will talk about. He already experienced that growing up in Mexico, so he gives us some context.
Fabulous.
Jared,
okay,
thank
Jared,
you.
we'll be listening. Thank you so
very much, Jared.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio as well. And thanks to people that came down to the Boston Public Library.
That's rather feeble applause,
Yeah.
by the way. We've been here 3 hours.
We've been
Can we
here
hear
for
it a
3
little
hours,
bit?
That's right. Okay.
I mean,
you can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast or check out our TikTok page, which is excellent, at Boston
Excuse
Public
me.
Radio.
An anonymous texter said, is Jim aware of gentlyworndickies.com? Thank you. Go ahead.
That's a good one.
Sorry.
We're going to be back here at the library tomorrow with cellist Yo-Yo Ma. He's going to be here around 11:30 tomorrow morning. Harvard National Security expert Juliette Kayyem, the Culture Show's Jared Bowen, the Curiosity Desk Edgar B. Hurwitz III, and Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein will be joining as well. We want to thank our great crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Lost, our engineer John the Claw Parker, our executive producer Jane Bologna. Thanks to BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Angelica Marrero, Juan Jose Cadena, our host at the Newsfeed Cafe, and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Jared and the Culture Show are next right after we're done on 89.7 GBH. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for
Thank you
tuning
all.
in
Thanks
today.
for coming, everybody.
Hope you can
too.
tune
We
in tomorrow if
appreciate
you're in the neighborhood. Yo-Yo Ma is going to be performing right here at the Boston Public Library. Have a great afternoon.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Massachusetts Maritime Academy, where education meets transformation. Their Learn, Do, Lead philosophy is designed to deliver students prepared for global leadership in careers on land or at sea. Maritime.edu. An old school detective puts off retirement to solve his wife's murder and untangle a ghastly web of criminal conspiracy. Don't miss Inspector George Gently tomorrow at 8 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Coming up today, playwright Ins Choi joins us to talk about Kim's Convenience, his hit play now presented by the Huntington Theatre. The comedy that also became a hit TV show is inspired by his Korean-Canadian upbringing and follows a Korean family running a corner store. Choi has also evolved. Once starring as the son, he now portrays the father, bringing new insight into the world he created. Then artist Dred Scott, known for work that challenges power and takes an unflinching look at America's complicated history, he joins us to discuss Fall of Freedom, the sweeping multi-city project he's organizing amid growing concerns about government overreach. Scott is calling on artists nationwide to confront rising threats to freedom of expression and civil liberties. And contributor Pedro Alonso joins us with a look at how tech consolidation, more monopolies, and unchecked power is reshaping America. For him, it echoes the Mexico in which he grew up, where corporate consolidation and political control stifled innovation until it didn't. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Kim's Convenience debuted in 2011 at the Toronto Fringe Festival as a play about the Kim family, Korean immigrants running a corner store in a neighborhood that's changing around them. It's sharp and funny, but also anchored in deeper currents, the weight of a family business, the legacy parents expect their kids will inherit, and the cultural crosswinds facing children raised in a country their parents had to learn from scratch. The play struck a chord, first in Canada and then internationally, eventually becoming the hit television series many viewers know today. Playwright Ins Choi, who crafted the story from his own Korean-Canadian upbringing, is also an actor and poet. He first played the son in the original stage production of Kim's Convenience and now steps into the role of the father. It's presented by the Huntington Theatre on stage at the Calderwood Pavilion through November 30th. Ins Choi joins us to talk about the world he created, the family at its center, and why a corner store remains such a potent foundation for family dynamics. Welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks.
Well, just to start, what is this world you created, but it's also one you knew fairly intimately?
It's a play that I wrote. I didn't study playwriting. I studied acting, and graduating in Toronto, went to York University for acting. There wasn't a lot of opportunities for actors of color back then, and so there was this group of Asian theater graduates that band together, and they formed an Asian Canadian theater company called Fujian. And under the leadership of Nina Liakino, we would just read Asian plays, mostly Asian American plays. And then she wanted to kind of nurture our own Asian Canadian playwrights. And so she invited me into their playwriting unit. And she said, come with an idea. And I was like, okay, write what you know. So I wrote about a Korean family. And, all my friends, my dad's a pastor of a church, but all his parishioners and all my friends' parents owned convenience stores growing up. And I worked in convenience stores. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'll set it in a convenience store and maybe a scene about a church. And so that's how it started.
What makes this now that you look back on what you did, what makes it such a ripe setting, especially for family dynamics?
Nowadays it might be different, but back then it was the family lives above the store in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and so it's very connected. The line between home and business is pretty blurred, as some restaurants around town might be as well. So that kind of arrangement where the family lives there, they eat, they grow up, but then they also have to put on this public-facing appearance of a business. I think that makes for a good equation for hilarity and tension and conflict.
Well, especially when a family is together for so many hours in the day, there isn't a lot of opportunity to escape in those hours.
Yeah, like I remember, working at a store, or my uncle owned a store, and he'd have his lunch in the store, eat dinner, and then he'd go out and someone's got to cover. Like, it's 7 days a week, open all the time, no vacation, no retirement. So yeah, it's a lot of time together.
Yourself with writing, or were tasked to write this, and you found this within your own confines, right? What you know, did it just gush forth? How long did it take you to formulate these characters and the setting?
It took, I think, from like the very beginning to when it premiered at the Fringe Festival in 2011, maybe a total of 7 years, on and off. So when I began, I was part of this unit of mostly actors who were just, trying to write a vehicle for themselves, which we do, because sometimes there's no vehicles out there, so you got to invent one. You got to write your own ticket sometimes. So we would meet like once a month or so, and we'd bring in scenes, and then we'd read each other's scenes. There's like maybe, 8 to 10 of us, all just beginner writers, beginner playwrights. And so it just kind of began like that. And what I would do, there was no intention, or like I wasn't conscious of the process, but I had a dad behind the counter, and then I'd write bing bong, and then I just invent the customer that comes in and have the dad interact with the customer. And I did this multiple times, like, this happens, that happens, something funny, something tragic, something convoluted, something simple. But over the course of doing that exercise over and over, Appa, the character, started to emerge as this kind of, a reflection of a lot of the Korean men that I grew up, like the people from the church, these men who, I feel like they may have had a higher status in Korea. They may have been highly educated with a lot of access, and then they come to Toronto or, North America, and just because of their accent, or the country doesn't recognize a certain degree or something, they're kind of relegated to the service industry or a store. And in Toronto, which may be different from Boston, there were a lot of, like, the Korean culture, there were a lot of Korean churches that were planted. And then there was a Korean wholesaler. So it kind of created this pipeline from Korea to Toronto. You go to church, you meet a few friends. This is where the Koreans are, okay. And then if you get a down payment for a corner store, you can go to the Korean wholesaler and talk in Korean, not having to learn a lick of English, really, except for a few hello pleasantries. Get the price everything in the store, and you can make a good living, provide for your family. So that happened a lot in Toronto, at least. And so there were these men who'd be relegated to this kind of work after perhaps doing something, maybe a higher status in Korea. And so I feel like it's kind of, there's a bit of chip on their shoulder, a bit of a my way or the highway, a bit of old school thinking. And so that all kind of coalesced into the character of Appa, who also has a sense of humor and is playful and is jovial, but also has certain ideas about how the world works and what age you should be married at, or things like that.
Well, as you say, when you were starting out, there wasn't necessarily a broad expanse of opportunity, but this clearly, obviously, took off. It took off at the Fringe Festival. Of course, it became the hit television show. Did you have an understanding of what in your story and your characters resonated so deeply in people?
Well, I knew, like, when it first went, the premiere, I knew my sisters would love it because, it's like our story, and there's jokes from my sisters, and I knew, like, the Korean community in Toronto would love it. And check, and then the Asian community. But then it was a big surprise that when the wider audience started to embrace it and relate to it, and it was kind of curious because I thought it was I was writing a specifically a Korean story but it turned out there was all these universal themes. Once again, not conscious of it, not really prescribing or trying to relate in universal terms, but like intergenerational conflicts, one generation's values versus another generation's values, but then also the family business. Like we were out in the prairies, and not a lot of Koreans, not a lot of Asians in the prairies, but people would love to play, and I'd be like, and then they'd come up to me after the show, and they're like, "That's just like my dad," and they'd be like a Ukrainian family or whatever, and they'd be like, "It's our family. We didn't have a corner store, but we had a restaurant, or we had a hardware store," and that exact same conversation. What happens when you? Because in the play, gets an offer for the store, and so he starts weighing in. He starts thinking about what to do. Do I sell it? What do I do? Do I pass it on? And so, at least for the first half, is him trying to convince his daughter to take over the store. And so there'd be these families who would relate to it on that level. But it's a comedy too. It's very funny and it's heartwarming. So I feel like it's got a lot of good things that people can relate to and enjoy.
I can't help but noticing, and maybe people watching on our stream will notice right now too, especially when you're talking about the characters, you get this smile. I can see you almost relishing, thinking of being back with these characters and thinking about.
This play has had quite a journey, starting from the Fringe Festival. I directed it. I bought a cash register from this going out of business, the store that around the corner from where I used to live. And it was just a table, a cash register, and an open close sign. And we just kind of did it. And it hit kind of harder than we thought. And then all the theater companies in Toronto were like, "Hey, how about you bring it over here?" And so then it went to Soul Pepper, and then we toured it across Canada. And then the TV series took off, and now we're on this tour in America. We just came from ACT in San Francisco. After Boston, we're in the new year. We're at Princeton, West Palm Beach, LA, San Diego, and I don't know. I'm hoping we could take a run at Off-Broadway or somewhere.
Sounds like there's a film in store too.
Yeah, who knows?
So what has it, first of all, if people are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Ins Choi, playwright, actor, and poet of Kim's Convenience, presented by the Huntington Theatre on stage at the Calderwood Pavilion through November 30th. Actually, first I want to go back to your father and the men of the church. What did they think when they saw this, and they saw themselves in it? My parents came to see the show, and after the show, they came up to me, gave me a big hug, and then my dad said, "Thank you." He said, "Thank you. We were very proud of you." And for me, there's no bigger validation of your work than, I feel like we all just want to make our parents proud of us. Yeah.
And to hear those words, that was huge. And then all of his friends and all the uncles that I have, and they would come see the show and they'd be like, "That's good." They'd be like, I think they were really impressed. I think impressed by the how the play was received, but also a little honored to be represented. Because, just even Koreans aren't, now it's different. Like K-pop, K-drama, Korean entertainment culture is worldwide. But at the time, it was kind of under the surface.
But you say at the time, but you are part of that wave, the Korean wave. That's true. You're part of the narrative, which must be pretty extraordinary. We remind people of all the films that have come this way, the Mingjin Lee, the books, of course, K-pop, the theater. It's all come at the same time. It's not necessarily accidental either.
Yeah, things like Maybe Happy Ending on Broadway, or all the movies and TV shows. But I do like to think that I'm part of that, especially from North America, like second generation Koreans in the diaspora, the UK, America, Canada, kind of adding to or bringing our voice to the table, and also participating in saying there's a spectrum of Koreans, there's a spectrum of immigrants, there's a spectrum of stories to relish and enjoy and to celebrate.
How do you look at your childhood now, knowing what you know, that there are so many people that want to emulate, that so many people that want to know more about, even participate in Korean culture because of this wave, when you were a kid, you were one of few?
Yeah, like when I was a kid, people would say, "Are you Chinese or Japanese?" Like, I remember hearing that a lot, and kids would tease, but Korean was never one of the list. and some kind of, when you're filling in an application for some whatever, there'd be Asian. What kind of Asian? Korean wouldn't be one of those boxes. And I remember sometimes, as maybe it doesn't sound nice, but growing up, there'd be moments where I'd be a little bit embarrassed, a bit of culture shame, a bit of like, why do I look this way? Why do my parents talk like that? I remember getting, I hope this isn't like insulting but there was a brand, I won't say the brand, but there was a brand of shoes from Korea, and we'd get like clothes from Korea when I was, like grade 6, and it was not cool. Like I wanted Nikes or, the American stuff. And I'd just be like, oh, man, why is Korean stuff not as good as, whatever? Now, my goodness, like my daughter, I have 2 kids. My daughter is 17, my son is 15. And just, like 3 years ago, she was a huge fan of BTS and Blackpink. And I had no idea. But all her her black, non-Korean friends, non-Asian friends, were also huge fans of BTS. And it was shocking because I was like, what? They have posters of Korean men on their walls? No, this is, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. But only like in one generation, because when I was a kid, none of that.
And now K-pop Demon Hunters. I mean,
K-pop Demon Hunters.
It just ends there. Well,
yeah.
It ends and continues growing from there. Yeah. Well, let me go back to your own evolution with this piece. And I can only imagine what this must have done in your play, Kim's Convenience, and now you're the dad.
Yeah. We get old, Jared. We all get old.
Say it is not so.
It's... if you're an actor out there and you once again, it's not by design, but write yourself a role when you get older in your own play. But no, when I first, I played the part of Chung, and it was great. We did the tour, but recently, so when I started to play the part of Appa, it was kind of this weird series of events that happened. I kind of took a step back from acting, focusing on writing, and then there was the writer's strike, COVID, and all that, and then I was out of a job. Some of the projects I was working on just kind of went, and then there was this theater company and this artistic director who wanted to do Kim's with me playing Appa, and at that same week, a good friend of mine, an older friend of mine who's like a really good actor, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and so he stopped acting, and he's like one of Canada's best actors. And for some reason, I thought, oh, what am I waiting for? Why am I hesitating to play Appa? I've always wanted to play Appa. I felt too young, but like, look at my hair. So then I kind of grabbed at that opportunity, and and just kind of it felt kind of normal.
Has it been fulfilling?
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's been a huge kind of, coming back to acting in this role, I felt like it was a bit of a full circle kind of homecoming. And then also, in rehearsals, kind of having conversations with myself as the playwright. Like, what does this line mean? Who wrote this? But it has been wonderfully satisfying being in front of a live audience, donning this role. I'm on stage pretty much for the whole play, kind of as this, as this host of this store on stage, and opening my heart to the audience, and kind of feeling like me and the cast were, kind of drawing the curtain a little bit and letting the audience see, a very entertaining but a bit of Korean culture, a bit of family dynamics, and I feel like the audience who comes, they leave loving the Kims, and I hope that that they leave, and the next time they go into a corner store, or the next time they come across a Korean family or an Asian family, they're like, oh yeah, it's kind of like the Kims, and that they see them differently. Yeah.
That is a beautiful way to end. It has been such a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Ins Choi is a playwright, actor, and poet. Kim's Convenience, which he wrote and stars in as the father, is presented by the Huntington Theatre and on stage at the Calderwood Pavilion through November 30th. To learn more, go to huntingtontheatre.org. Coming up, The Art of Protest. Dred Scott joins us to talk about leading Fall of Freedom, a series of nationwide events and protests he and others have scheduled for this weekend to defend democracy. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Love is complicated. It can somehow be both fleeting and forever, heartbreaking and healing, messy and magnificent. We're looking for true personal stories that explore all kinds of love and the enduring bonds between family, friends, and that special someone. Submit your story to Stories from the Stage today at worldchannel.org/storytellers.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And H&H, the Handel and Haydn Society, the greatest story ever told in song, and Boston's musical holiday tradition, Handel's Messiah, November 28th, 29th, and 30th at Symphony Hall. And Rocky Ruggiero, making art and history come to life, offering travel programs throughout Italy and online learning opportunities on Italian art and culture. Learn more at rockyruggiero.com. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer, the Unclaimed Property Division, is holding unclaimed funds from utility bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov.
Join me, Paris Alston, on December 13th to learn how to make sticky buns with Chef Joanne Chang. Sign up by November 21st and we'll send a kit to make her signature recipe from home. Get in the mix at gbh.org/events.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Artist Dred Scott tests the boundaries of American freedom, from what is the proper way to display a U.S. flag, the work that thrust him into a Supreme Court battle over flag desecration, to large-scale performances that lay bare how race, power, and protest collide in public life. Now, at a moment when school districts are pulling books, states are restricting demonstrations, and cultural institutions are retreating from politically charged art, he's joining a coalition of artists, which includes Ava DuVernay, John Legend, and Jeffrey Wright, for Fall of Freedom, a nationwide surge of creative resistance. It takes place this Friday and Saturday and features events, exhibitions, readings, and performances. In Massachusetts, Praise Shadows Art Gallery and Castle of Our Skins are among the local institutions hosting Fall of Freedom events. Dred Scott joins us to talk about it all. Welcome back to the show. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is fantastic. Well, I look forward to the conversation.
I am so looking forward to it, to understand how artists are coming together in this moment. So just in a broad sense to start, tell us what Fall of Freedom is.
Well, you gave a pretty good synopsis of it. I mean, Fall of Freedom is a gathering of people in the arts, and by arts, we mean anybody that does anything in the arts, whether it's visual artists or musicians or authors or playwrights or comedians or culinary arts. We wanted to gather them to put their work before the public on November 21st and 22nd. It's a nationwide effort. We have people that are well-known household names like John Legend that will be participating, but there's lots and lots and lots of people that are people you probably haven't heard of, and people who aren't that well-known outside of their communities. But it is something that we wanted to have the well-known to the unknown, including high school students and college students who are, future artists that are upset, say, that the books that are being pulled off the shelves that you mentioned, that they can't have access to. And so we wanted to find a way to involve all sorts of people across the country.
Well, and people can check out the website to see all manner of people who are participating, where these events are happening all across the country, and of course here in New England. But how did this come to be? Was there a model of how to make this happen? This is a pretty extraordinary effort.
Well, I'm glad that you find it extraordinary. It is. There are some precedents, but largely no. I mean, the closest two precedents that there are were in the 80s and 90s. There was an effort called the Day Without Art, which was artists that were very concerned about the lack of treatment for people with AIDS. And it was impacting the visual arts community very heavily, especially in the New York area. But they started a nationwide movement which ultimately had people, museums and galleries shuttering their doors for a day to show what's being lost with the tremendous death that was happening in the mid to late 80s. And then also there was an artist call against U.S. intervention in Central America, where artists were actually very upset at what their tax dollars were being used to do, where the U.S. was invading and occupying El Salvador and Nicaragua. And so those were somewhat precedents, but this is something that's new. It crosses disciplines and it crosses professional and unprofessional. And so there wasn't a precedent. And I think part of why we did this was it was unprecedented. I mean, what was going on in the country, the United States is quickly moving towards fascism, and that was an emergency. And so we felt that artists both have often pointed to ways to look at the world and understand the world, but also bring joy in dark times. And we feel very much that art actually matters. This is not a protest, and we're not having people with demonstrations and signs, as important as those are. This is actually people saying, look, books like The Handmaid's Tale or The Bluest Eye have actually been at the heart of how people understand some profound changes in the world. Music that, Strange Fruit in the past was something that actually helped galvanize a movement against lynching. And so there are plays and music and comedy, and the fact that Jimmy Kimmel was somebody that was yanked off the air because the president didn't like what he was saying about him, that actually shows the power of art. And we wanted to actually go to the people with how powerful this work is and get them to support and see how the world, both what it was becoming, but also what freedom we had to make it radically different.
Well, before I follow up on that and what exactly is at stake right now, I want to go back to a distinction you just made that I haven't made yet either, which is that this is not the typical coming together, the protests and signs, as you say. How will this unfold with all of these artists coming together?
This will be in libraries in Ames, Iowa. This will be in concert halls in Sacramento. It will be in art galleries in Boston. This is be on theater stages, from Broadway to Chicago. This is going to manifest in lots of different ways, but we're really foregrounding the art. And we think that the art actually matters, that the expression is actually part of the resistance and part of what's really needed, and is actually integrated into people's lives. I mean, people, there's this mythology that's being promoted by the MAGA movement that art is something that's elitist, but I'm sorry. I think people all over the country, regardless of their political views, they're going to see concerts, they're going to plays, they're going to art galleries, they're reading books, and the effort to control and censor and suppress what is, what people see, what they experience, is actually because this art it matters. It's dangerous, and they're trying to control the narrative by suppressing the art that actually speaks to how the world actually developed. I mean, it's like if you're trying to remove books like The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison from shelves, or 1984, or The Handmaid's Tale at a time when you're sort of pushing things towards fascism, that's because you think that those ideas about the analysis of fictional places, people might apply them to the current present situation and say, actually, why don't women have access to reproductive care? Why are men using religion as a means to control women? We don't actually want that. That's not what we think this country is supposed to be about.
What do you see at stake right now? What is the future for artists in this country, given the restrictions that have happened and the public dialogue that has happened since the beginning of January?
Well, I mean, I'm concerned about artists, and I'll talk about that a bit, but Fall of Freedom is really not just about artists and what freedom we have to create and exhibit our work, but is, migrants are being kidnapped and shipped off to places that they've never been before. They've been deported. City streets are being occupied. Right now, we've just seen that the Trump administration has sent, sort of the new Gestapo to Charlotte, North Carolina, and they're, brutalizing people there as they did in Chicago and Los Angeles. The rule of law has been tremendously gutted. There's just an excellent story in the New York Times today about how the Justice Department has been hollowed out and people in there have been replaced by loyalists to Trump, which is not historically how the Justice Department has worked, whatever shortcomings it's had. This is very, law firms are capitulating. World-class universities are clamping down on students. And this is a very dangerous situation, not just for artists, which, I can talk to how the White House trying to control what's exhibited at the Smithsonian Institution, our national museums, or suppressing and removing funding from the NEA or NPR, how that actually directly affects what artists can say, what the public can see, what they can read, what they can hear. It does definitely affect artists, but this is not just about art as important, as it's directly affected me. There are shows, exhibitions that have been canceled because, I had support from the National Endowment for the Arts, which was clawed back. But, if the worst thing that happens in the country is that I can't show one artwork, who cares about that much? I mean, it's a problem, but it's not that big a deal. But people, hardworking people being separated from their families and sent to prisons in El Salvador, that is a big deal.
Well, what do the artists do that help people understand this? Because I ask this in light of the attack that has come on the arts, because people didn't necessarily see this coming, but it is a playbook, of course, that we know throughout history has been employed before, which I think also highlights the power that artists have, that certain people want to strangle their voices.
Yeah. Well, I do think some people did see this coming. I mean, this was, people hoped that this wasn't what was going to happen. But, I mean, Project 2025, it was pretty much announced what they were going to do. And Trump ran on a campaign of, I'm going to deport every immigrant here. And that's what he's attempting to do. And so, I think a lot of progressive people said, oh, no, that's just hyperbole. But actually, Trump is a fascist. And the playbook that you're speaking to, one of the things that the Nazis did in Germany was to have degenerate art shows. They showed the art that they didn't like. They rounded it up. They burned it. They had book burnings. And we're seeing the descendants of those people do things like that because they are trying to control culture and they are trying to control narrative. And I think that, this is something that when people are starting to understand the depth of what's going on and how much is changing, how quickly, they are getting freaked out, which is good. People should be upset by this and are starting to act, which is part of why Fall of Freedom is saying, look, the artists actually have a lot to contribute to this. This is the reason they're going after us is because it does matter. And, the irony that books like the 1619 Project or 1984 are being pulled off the shelves, and yet in military places in West Point you can still get Mein Kampf. That speaks volumes.
Well, I think the degenerate art exhibition in particular is a really interesting example because at the end, that ended up being extraordinarily well attended. People gravitated toward the artists who were identified by the government in that situation as not being worthy of society and certainly of the country, according to its leadership. But if you look at history, it rather backfired.
Yeah. And likewise, I mean, the really wonderful artist Amy Sherrill had to cancel a show at the Smithsonian. She had a painting that had an image of a trans woman holding up a torch, sort of appearing like the Statue of Liberty, and it became very clear that work might be censored, or that the Smithsonian was going to demand to have people that basically didn't think that trans people were human, and have them have equal time in Amy Sherrill's show. And she said, I can't show in this context. And so the show got pulled from the Smithsonian, and then it moved to the Baltimore Museum of Art, and is so far extremely well received there. And I think that is true when repressive governments try to prevent people from seeing good art. Often people seek that art out. That it backfires in that sense. But also, let's be clear, the Nazis in Germany ruled for 12 years. And, it's like, the degenerate art show was popular, and those are the artists that people look to from those times. But, those shows were held, I believe, in 1937. It is something that, it would have been far better had the arts community and others found ways to defeat the Nazis, and so that they would have been more, that we wouldn't have had the final solution, that we wouldn't have had all of what we became to understand as the true horror of Nazi Germany. And if the artists had found the ways to say, well, we're not going to allow our works to be burned, we're not going to allow the books to be burned, we're going to have these shows, but we're going to actually rally people at that time to say that this is not degenerate, it's the Nazi regime that's degenerate. And likewise, this MAGA movement that is replacing the board of the Kennedy Center, that is going after culture, saying that the African American Museum and the Smithsonian is makes people feel bad about slavery. Well, you should feel bad about slavery. It was a horror. And so, the culture that exists now, there's a real battle for it. And I think that Fall of Freedom is hoping to help galvanize people on the importance of this culture and bring people to see the preciousness of it, but fight, because it actually talks about not just the art and culture, but about the society that we're living.
I'm speaking with Dred Scott, the artist, who is talking about Fall of Freedom, a nationwide movement by artists happening Friday and Saturday, responding to what's happening in our government and across the country right now. You just mentioned the institutions, and I have to tell you, I've been thinking so much about you since we last spoke, because you were on the verge of maybe being exhibited in museums. Despite your long career, you haven't had a lot of that because of the nature of your work. We know that institutions are retrenching, especially in the anti-DEI efforts that are underway. What do you see institutions doing now, and how, to what extent has work fallen away from you in terms of being exhibited in these institutions?
Well, it's funny. As we speak, I just a couple days ago got back from being in Berlin, where I have work that's on an exhibition in an Academy der Kunst that is a show about Paul Robeson, and specifically it's called Artists Must Take Sides. And Paul Robeson was an activist and singer and actor and NFL professional football player that was really beloved, but was hounded by the U.S. government. And the fact that to get to an exhibition about his work and his ideas, you have to go to Berlin, actually says something about the times. And the work that's on view there is in part a project called Slave Rebellion Reenactment, which was a reenactment that I did that had 350 reenactors that reenacted the largest rebellion of enslaved people in the history of the United States. And it also displays another work called By Reading This, You Agree to Overthrow Dictators, which is just a text piece that encourages people to overthrow dictators. And so, I am getting shown, but sometimes I have to go global in order to have the support to show the work. My work is shown in museums. I'm going to be at, in galleries. I'm going to be at Art Basel Miami Beach, which is coming up, a big art fair, but also there are museum exhibitions in the future. But it's a real battle, and especially right now because museums are terrified of losing funding, either funding directly from the government, but also from their donors, and some of those donors are conservative Republicans, and so it is a real question when the society is saying, well, this art should be shown, this art shouldn't be shown because of how it aligns with the MAGA movement. That's a big challenge to the arts and arts community. So I will continue to make that work, but again, it's not really about me. It's about whether people have the capacity to stop a horrific regime, which is, again, rounding up ordinary people at gunpoint for people just trying to feed their families, and violating the rule of law in all manner of unspeakable ways that I think you will, for decades, this country will be living with if this is not stopped very quickly.
Well, Dred Scott, as always, it's fantastic to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I look forward to speaking again, but also I encourage your audience to see some of the great shows that are in Boston on the 21st and 22nd.
Dred Scott is a visual artist whose work examines power and the pursuit of freedom in American life. He's one of the artists leading Fall of Freedom. You can learn more about the nationwide events happening. This is just exactly what he was talking about, to learn more about what you can do, how you can participate, what you can experience. It's happening Friday and Saturday, including programs planned in New England. You can find all of that information at falloffreedom.com. Coming up, Culture Show contributor Pedro Alonso draws some very interesting parallels between today's tech landscape in the United States and the monopolies he watched shape Mexico in the 80s and 90s. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia visits the White House to talk with President Trump. Both sides want to get something tangible out of the meeting. It could come down to this:
who has greater skills, frankly, at negotiations, and who's going to come out of this, frankly, a clear victor.
That story next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Porter Square Books, hosting Sanghamitra Iyer with Governing Bodies, a memoir of family, conservation, and the natural world. November 19th at 7 at PSB Boston Edition. Info at portersquarebooks.com. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And Gordon College, helping you celebrate the holiday season with choral ensembles, instrumental performances, and a carol sing at their annual Christmas Gala, December 3rd, 5th, and 6th. Tickets at gordongala.com.
Breaking local news and breaking it down to how it affects you. GBH News 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app. Trusted local news.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. It's time for our recurring feature, AI Actual Intelligence, where we tap into the most interesting thinkers in our region. Their insights and observations are totally original and algorithm-free. We're joined by Culture Show contributor Pedro Alonso. He's also an independent public art curator. Today we're talking about the rise of tech giants in the United States and how both this growing monopoly and income inequality is resonating with him because he's already lived it all before. Pedro, welcome back. It's great to see you.
Great to see you.
Well, let me start by asking, this was prompted by a new book by Cory Doctorow. I'll let you say the title or what you can. It's kind of an uncomfortable title, and I'm not even sure we can say it on the radio.
Yeah, it's an bleepification. So it's about, defecating, basically, and how the lack of oversight, the growing monopolies, the growing power of many of these giant tech companies, the Magnificent Seven, are basically, turning their services into a pile of poo. It's kind of, and it's Cory Doctorow. I mean, his writing is kind of, crude, but But he makes some brilliant points. And I was reading this book. It's a fascinating book. I want to say that I'm an empty nester now. I've read 6 books since my kid left. My kids left. So
wow.
I've been reading a lot. Yeah. But what was interesting is I finished the book in Mexico, in Monterrey, Mexico, where I went to college. And I arrived there in 1987. I went to high school and college. And when I was in college in particular, there was the university had such a strong emphasis on innovation, on breaking down monopolies, on all sorts of free market, right, and opening up the economy, right, to products like McDonald's. I mean, I when I moved to Mexico, the first McDonald's had opened in Mexico City. I mean, so, this was a very different world. So reading this book, I began to see how, with the economy opening up, and which ultimately led at some point, kind of went into overdrive with the free, the North American free trade, and Mexico changed. The policy, politics opened up. Mexico had been a one-party system for a long time.
I was going to say, well, I guess that's exactly where you were headed. But what was the landscape from which this all began to change?
Well, so it was. It kind of began to change together. In order for the country to grow, Mexico needed foreign investment, and foreign investment had been kept out for a long time. In maintaining power, both for the government and, roughly 60 families that kind of cut up the cake. So there were territories for beer. So there was Corona country and Tecate country. There were, not that you couldn't find those beers, but it was very difficult to find. The country was kind of locked up into blocks. And that began to change. And I saw it changing in college, because they really wanted entrepreneurs. They really wanted people to change the country with business. And also on the political side, things began to loosen up as well. And eventually did. In 2000, President Fox was elected, who was from the conservative liberal in terms of business party, right? And
but wait, let me pause you again and ask, how does change begin to happen when you have consolidation, when you have a political entity that doesn't want change, when you have fiefdoms that don't want encroachment? Where was the wiggle room for this to begin to crack open?
Poverty, lack of social mobility, serious inequality, an unhappy populace, and that fight, of business leaders, political movements, people who wanted the country to change. And there were many efforts that were stifled over time, and there was a lot of dissatisfaction, but it did begin to change, right? And I saw that change. I saw, the market open up and a flood of foreign goods enter Mexico. But then we also saw many, Mexican companies start to work very effectively abroad. And it kind of, in some ways, balances out, but there was this kind of hand-in-hand movement of the economy as well as the political system, and they opened up. And what was interesting, though, is being in Mexico, seeing that and reading this book about the locking down of these monopolies, of the closing down of and how poorly companies like Facebook treat their business partners and their consumer, right? And how these monopolies are forming, and how cozy they are with their regulators, or lack of regulation, and consolidation in the market, not just in tech, but in many markets and in many sectors of the economy. And it hit me like, oh my God, I'm watching this happen in reverse in the United States. Instead of things opening up, they're clamping down, right? Your previous guest was talking about, the clamping down of freedom of speech. So it's interesting. I don't know. To see these things happening at this time in the United States is really scary. It's also, I think, I don't think a lot of Americans really understand that the United States has been the benchmark for success, for freedom of speech, for rule of law, for, the emblem of many of the best practices for business, right? They were the leader. They were the
So when you're sitting in that college class in the late 80s, they're saying this is what we need to do in this country, being Mexico, in order to be the United States.
Yeah, we want to be more like the United States. We need to open things up. We want competition. Competition is a very good thing, right? But when it's stifled competition, monopolies, when it stifles innovation. Right.
For people just tuning in, I'm speaking with Pedro Alonso, Culture Show contributor, also independent curator. We're talking about Cory Doctorow's new book. Just look it up, new book. We won't say the title on this show. But before you continue, if you could just describe what Mexico has become in the intervening 40 years, or I guess 30 or 40 years since you were sitting in that college classroom and there was this movement to change the country.
Yeah, I mean, Mexico has benefited tremendously from, foreign investment, opening up of markets, competition, right? So companies that had monopolies on all sorts of products and services that were very poor, in many cases, because there was no competition. So trade blocks, territories where one brand predominated over any other, that broke down as well. So the country has become the economy became much more diverse, right? Diverse is good, right? And when I first arrived in Mexico, like I said earlier, there was like one McDonald's in the entire country, and then they began to open up. I remember when Carl's Jr. opened up, how happy people were to have these American companies open up and succeed. Cars, there were there weren't any luxury cars. Now there are many. So Mexico has changed. And I have an interesting little anecdote and some statistics tied to it. So when I moved back to the United States, I moved back in 1997. I was at an opening in New York, and the Rubels were there. The collectors from Miami, Don and Mira, were there, and we were chatting, and they were asking
very famous art collectors, and they were asking me, so what's it like to be back in the States? And I said, it's really funny to be back in the States. It's strange because it's weird to watch the United States start to become a third world country. And they freaked out when I said that. And I said, well, these are not things that I invented. Look at decaying infrastructure. Mind you, this was a long time ago. This was 30 years ago. Decaying infrastructure. Look at what's happening with politics. Look at what's happening with inequality. And they were outraged. They thought you're crazy. And I think today most people would agree, right? But I do have some numbers here. So someone had told me recently that in the Global Inequality Index, Mexico and the United States are now only like 2 points apart. And so I looked it up, and the World Bank does have, it's called the Gini Index. And so let me see. So 0 means more income inequality. I'm sorry, more equality, and 100, closer to 100, is inequality. So in Mexico was at 50%, which meant high inequality, right? And this is in 1987. And the United States was at 38.8, right? Which is pretty good. And in 2022, which is when I could find the last statistics, Mexico had dropped from 50 to 43.5. But the U.S. went from 38 to 41.7, right? So the U.S. is becoming less equal, right? And it says a lot
and I don't think that, we see it, it's on the globe every other day. We see about, families who, middle-class families who, earn well but can't afford to live here anymore. And I think that there's a lot of that. So it's interesting I guess for me, it was a real revelation to be sitting in Mexico, in the town where I went to college, reading a book about the tech giants and, in Silicon Valley, and seeing this change, this revelation. For me, it was a revelation to see this, how the U.S. is changing.
Well, does Mexico continue to explore that comparison a little further? Does Mexico continue to surprise you? You don't live there now, but you're back frequently to visit. And how do you see it developing even in this moment?
Well, things have slowed down. There, the last administration was very controversial. And it's funny because in Mexico, it's like, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the former president of Mexico, and Donald Trump, the former president of the United States and now current president of the United States, are very similar, right? They're, thin-skinned, attack the media, are very critical of any kind of, institutions. They're discredit institutions regularly. They vengeful, sending, attacking political enemies quite regularly and discrediting institutions. So that happened a lot in Mexico. I think the current president is better, but Mexico the growth has stalled. So Mexican growth has stalled. And again, what Mexico would really benefit from, again, is more foreign investment.
Well, and I wonder about that, too, for people who are wary of foreign investment because they want to see it spring up. Maybe this is a form of nationalism, but what does it mean when you have a proliferation of McDonald's or Carl's Jr. throughout the country and that conversation about changing social fabric and dynamic?
Yeah, well, the diabetes and obesity.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the big challenges for Mexico is, the country. The Economist wrote something about Mexico was showing signs of being a rich nation, but it was obesity and diabetes. So a rise in both. So I feel like Mexico has benefited tremendously. And I think the U.S. has as well. From right now, these countries have, they are the two biggest trade partners, right? But my concern is the rise in authoritarianism in this country, right? And how that tied to a business sector that wants to exploit an authoritarian worldview is bad for everyone, not just in terms of our political freedoms, but also of our economic freedoms and what that could mean in terms of stifling the country. I mean, there was a moment when you had, Mexico was a country where you had fewer products, very little smaller economic diversity, and it a lot of poverty. So, I'm not an economist. I just want to be clear. This is a conversation based on something I read.
Well, you're also reconciling how you grew up, and I think we spent so much time thinking about U.S. history without necessarily thinking about global history or world history, too. Pedro Alonso, thank you, as always, for being here and for sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
Culture Show contributor and independent curator Pedro Alonso joins us every month. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow or join us live at the Boston Public Library for Mary Grant, president of Mass Art. And we'll get a Thanksgiving primer, not to mention a helpful meal rescue hotline with Chef Daniel Kenny of Willow and Ivy Restaurant, who is on call this holiday running a turkey hotline. Thanks today for producing our stream done by Steve Barashi. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH's All Things Considered is coming up this afternoon at 4 with Marketplace at 6:30. But first, get a global view of the news with The World. Up next, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Revolutionary Valley. On April 19th, 1775 in Lexington and Concord, the first shots of the Revolution rang out. This is the heart of Revolutionary Valley. RevolutionaryValley.org. Funded in part by the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. The war for American independence faces its toughest challenge yet, as General Washington tries to defend New York City. The American Revolution, the new 6-part documentary from Ken Burns, continues tonight at 8 on GBH2.
The U.S. needs more truck drivers. Could updates to trucks, like cameras and driver assist technology, make long hauls more comfortable and keep drivers around for longer?
I would say that this truck's easier to drive than most cars nowadays.
I'm Scott Tetro. We lift up the hood on the future of trucking on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at